Chapter 2028. Swoosh. The golden light on the mountain peak suddenly disappeared, and a sacred aura rushed to the center of the mountain peaks. The two figures were extremely short, but their auras were majestic and powerful. Just looking at them from afar would make one's heart palpitate. Kid, you used my Sacred Mountain's golden sky array to attack my Sacred Mountain's people. Do you really think no one can kill you? Saint Extermination's eyes flashed with a bloody light as he spoke with a terrifying aura. However, after getting a clear look at their bodies, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Both Saint Extermination and Saint Purity's clothes had been torn to shreds, but Sue-E remained unmoved, as firm as a rock. Sue-E stood on the spot as the blood demon, killing God's sword in his hand, trembled violently. A desolate energy that wanted to obliterate everything surged out as he spoke coldly. If you could kill me, you would have done so long ago. Why wait until now? The two of you don't have the qualifications to clamor with me now. After saying that, Sue-Yi's lips curled up as his eyes suddenly turned cold. Kid, you can activate the Golden Sky Array. Are you a Sacred Mountain disciple? Sheng-Qing's eyes flickered as a powerful aura drifted out. Sue-Yi shook his head again. His gaze fell on the group of barbaric demon beasts that were attacking the Sacred Mountain disciples below as he said in a low voice, "You don't have the qualifications to know anything. Since you don't come out all year round, don't get involved in this mess. Say a few more words, and I don't mind killing 2 more Sacred Mountain bastards." Ha ha! Wild laughter came from Elder Saint Extermination's mouth. The powerful sound waves pierced everyone's eardrums, shocking them once again. Even though the Golden Sky Array had been so powerful, it had only managed to make the two of them look like they were in a sorry state. The 8th and 9th stage of the Yuan Domain realm were already at the peak of the martial Tao. But now, there was someone who didn't even put them in his eyes. Arrogant kid, no wonder the Sacred Mountain is in such a miserable state. Saint Extermination laughed again. Behind him, Elder Sheng-Qing's face gradually turned cold as he said in a low voice, "Do you really think you're invincible just because you can activate the Golden Sky Array? Ridiculous. They're still us." Boom. Immediately, Chapter the experts of Yuqian Palace falling in love with you, there were 2 old men with similar Their voices were so loud. Both of them were bald, even the deaf and had sparse snow-white beards. Leading them was Duanmu Xiaoman. Their yellowish faces seemed to have lost their vitality. Her eyes were like lightning, making them look like 2 barbaric vultures. "What can you do to me, even if I overturn?" They were staring coldly at Sue. The vassal elders were all brimming. The vigorous voice from before had finally able to loosen their muscles and bones. Elder Shengfeng. Absolute. The old man on the left had a hunchback, and his thick palms had a serious expression on their faces. All the holy mountains, Elder Saint Extermination, and when he saw that, including the holy mountains, did not expect such support. His eyes were filled momentarily. They stood there like celestial Shengfeng, thinking that Elder Saint Extermination. It seems like holy heaven's death, and today's holy mountain's grand competition spoke all caused by our an incomparably majestic expression. Elder Sheng-Qing, her bright was moving, and his eyes fell on Duanmu Xiaoman. So Elder Duanmu is also he could not help the nice surge between half-step to Yuan. Hearing this woman is already half a step. Elder was standing beside her. Smiled. Had been Elder Saint Extermination and Elder Sheng-Qing's heart dumbfounded. If from today on had interfered earlier, it might not have been so come out of my friend for a long time. Xiang House looked they wanted to improve their cultivation. He was certain as soon as they came out of Sue, they encountered such an unraveling of the holy. As soon as the words left her mouth, you don't deserve everyone was shocked. You lost the right to his cultivation had already reached Duanmu Xiongtu's. Are you still indifferent after seeing? Even though he already had today's disaster on such a miserable state, are you still a disciple? A bad premonition that the elders Shengfeng on the left had murky eyes and an Elder Saint Extermination. The questions that had been lingering eyes surged out along with his fury. He tried to pry reprimand. Holy Emperor, felt as if he had been too over everything that happened in the past 30 years were all I want to live and die. Jealousy and suspicion. Today's grand competition of the holy Elder Saint Extermination blood that had been planned for a long time. Even though there was Emperor passed away, who killed the holy Emperor 30 years ago, sister, and who ordered the holy mountain. Only now do I know that the Duanmu Xiongtu's eyes were sharp at this time, and he glared at the front. Don't you know your mistakes? In a flash, Xiaomon
beside
scrutinized elder
pressed
down
fifth
Saint Child,
and
elder
speak out loud.
Sheng
He's
Yun.
very good.
This old man
will
in the
not
sacred
rest
rest
until
I couldn't find
the
where
holy
she is
venerable.
dead.
What's in this
was
today?
Killed by the
is the
tomb.
ambition
While
of
the sage emperor
Duan
Mu
also
Xiaoman
reigning
by
by holy
soul-stirring
the current
eyes
state of the
reveals
holy
the
mountain
Icy
is
killing
not
intent.
Suyi's fault.
Duan Mu
Her red
Xiong
lips
because
is
slightly
furious.
You've massacred a
village
sacred
and
deceived your
superiors.
superiors. His voice was like a
mock
thunderclap.
Haven't you found
my
shattering
shattering
space
Duan Mu
around
their
Tian
angry
by
roars
Saint
turned into
extermination
rolling
Saint
waves
Child.
and
Do not speak
spirals in the
nonsense.
The Duan Mu
cries of the
slandering
ferocious
holy
mountain
younger brother
is a
crime
crime
punishable
by death.
immediately.
Shut up,
Rings
for
of
the
a flame had
the old
voice
rang
out
out
of the
sky.
It had been a long
time
caused
since
anyone
from
from two withered figures rapidly Elder Sheng Feng,
everyone
and
present,
Elder,
one on the
including
right.
the people
Their
from the
faces
heavens
were
were
wished,
straight in their
trembling,
and their sunken
towering
eyes were
crane,
lifeless.
their
Heaven
red
controlling
dry
noses
heaven
twitched
controlling
slightly,
duo,
as if
their
their
reputation
reputation
spread
spread
far
far and wide.
They laughed dryly.
As soon as he finished
Wrong?
speaking,
Duan Mu
Suruga's
Xiong
short body twitched.
What do you know?
His sacred
entire
mountain
body
had existed
froze
on
on
the
the
spot,
spot,
as if he had been
years.
electrocuted. The sacred
Shang
mountain
Wan Tian
must
Sheng,
become the
who
sixth
was standing
noble
behind
house,
him.
was
How can we
equally
remain
agitated.
stagnant?
After
Don't you
handing
understand
over
that the
Xiong
strong
House
are
and
respected?
Lu Ruoxi
You are the
to
chief
the heavenly
elder
drive
of the sacred
palace's people,
martial hall.
Shang Wan
You've lived
Tian's
for
ears
hundreds
perked
of
up.
years in vain.
His chest heaved up and
Sheng
down
Feng
due
scolded
to his
in a low
excitement.
voice.
Killing
Sheng Yin
intent
stood
surged
to
in
the
his
side.
eyes.
His
As he
robes
looked at Sheng
fluttered
Qing
slightly,
and Sheng
and his
Ye.
lips turned
Duan Mu
slightly
Qing
green.
Tian.
A mocking
These two
and
words made
unruly
Elder
smile
Sheng Ye
appeared on his
and
face.
Elder
Duan Mu
Sheng
Xiong
looked at each
too
other.
immediately
A chill
laughed
spread
loudly
as Sheng
and said
Ye
angrily,
spoke viciously.
I was right to withdraw
Shameless
back
woman.
then.
How dare you
Unfortunately,
mention
I discovered
Duan
it too
Mu
late,
Qing,
causing the
Don't you
Saint
know what he's
Emperor
carrying?
to die
The
tragically.
Sky Wind
Now,
Martial Pavilion.
the Saint
colluded
Venerable
with
is
the
dead
Sky
because of you.
Demon Sect
I'm
to
guilty.
overthrow the
Fine.
Sky Barbarian.
Turning his
Covenant.
head,
Duan
everyone
Mu
has the
Xiong
right to
too
kill
solemnly looked at Xiao
After
House
Sheng
and
Ye
said,
finished speaking,
Fifth
Duan
holy
Mu
son,
Qingtian,
clear away the
Suruga,
filth, and Shang
and the
Wan
sacred
Tianchen
mountain
behind him
will
flew
return to
into a
normal.
rage at the same
To
time.
be able to make the
Under the
sacred
black
mountain
robe,
fall
Duan
to
Mu
such a
Qingtian's
state.
anger had
I believe
reached
you
its
must have an
peak like a
answer in your
volcanic
heart.
eruption.
As
His
if he was
voice
entrusting
was hoarse
someone
as
he
Duan
clenched
Mu
his
Xiong
fists.
too spoke
Meanwhile,
sincerely
Shang Wan
and earnestly.
Tianchen and
Xiang
Suruga's
House's
faces were
expression
ashen as
their
their
killing
killing
intent
and he said in a low voice,
The sacred mountain
Long
must
family.
be destroyed.
Bullshit. The Long family
Xiang
must
House,
die.
you bastard.
Duan Mu
Shut up for this old
Qingtian
man.
roared in a low
Duan Mu
voice.
Xiong too.
Bang.
You
Ice
arrogant
crystals
person.
condensed
You're courting
as
death.
Duan Mu
Boom.
Xiaoman's
A strong
eyes
storm came out
suddenly
from
burst
Sheng
with
Feng and
unprecedented
Sheng Yan's
killing
palms.
intent.
The two
She
twin
gently
brothers
waved
had
her
cultivated
hand,
the
and the
Saint
ice
Monarch
crystals
Qi
shot
together
towards
since
Elder
they were young.
Sheng Ye.
At this
at a
time,
ghostly speed.
when they joined forces, they
Elder
almost
Sheng
had
Ye
the
and
strength
Elder
of a
Sheng
half-step
Qing's
Yuan
expressions
Tian expert.
changed drastically.
Suddenly, a
golden
golden
light
divine
rose
ring
from their
surged,
hands
as
and
they
the Saint
formed
Monarch
a sage
Qi,
monarch
which was
domain.
enough to destroy
Ding,
everything in
ding.
the world.
The ice
Blasted
crystals
towards
whistled
Duan Mu
through the
Xiong
air
Tuesday,
as if they were
the combined attack
unstoppable
of the two
and easily
is
penetrated the
comparable to a
sage
half-step
monarch
Yuan
domain.
Tian
The
expert.
blazing space
They're not easy to deal
along
with.
the way was
He
instantly
cursed in his
frozen.
heart.
In the
Feeling
time
the
it took for a
surging
spark
Saint
to fly
Monarch
off a
Qi
flint,
in
the
front
ice
of him,
crystals
the
flew
cold
in
smile
front of
on his
Elder
face
Sheng Ye,
rose again.
and once
When the
again
truth
turned into
was
silk
exposed
and struck
someone was going to
Elder
do
Sheng Ye's
something
mouth.
desperate.
A
Boom.
resounding
Duan
slap
Mu Xiong
resounded
too
through the
pulled
mountain
Xiang
peak.
House over.
Everyone
and
was
quickly
immediately
formed a
shocked.
Saint Monarch
An
realm around.
8-stage
The
origin
peak of
domain
Yuan
expert
domain
was
stage
slapped
9
by a
spread out
goddess
rapidly
in front of
and
everyone's
brought
eyes.
Xiang House.
Elder
and the
Sheng
Saint Monarch
Ye
Qi
clearly
to dodge the
hadn't
attack.
recovered from his shock.
Duan Mu Xiaoman
Fresh blood
and
flowed
Su
from the
looked
corner
at
of
each
his
other.
mouth as
At
he
almost the
spat
same
out
time,
a few yellow
Su
teeth.
He rose into the
I'll
air
give you one more chance.
and quickly
Say it again.
circulated his origin
Duan Mu
ancestry
Xiaoman
stage
coldly said.
3 cultivation.
Her gaze was fixed
in
on
an instant.
Su
His
as she
aura
turned to
became
face Elder
extremely
Sheng Qing, and
Scarlet
Elder Sheng
light
Qing
surged
Sheng
in his
Qing's
eyes,
face was
and his
ashen.
black hair
He
fluttered
only
behind
understood
him.
how terrifying
aura
on his
Duan Mu
body
Xiaoman's
also carried
cultivation
the
realm
stubborn
was from that
aura
sudden
of a
attack.
god.
His white
descending
brows
into the
furrowed
world.
as he heard
Blood
Elder
Phoenix
Sheng
rends
Ye
the
laugh
sky.
wildly behind
Break.
him.
Blood
Blood
filled
filled
his
his
mouth,
mouth, godly
as if he was a
snow-sealed,
bloodthirsty
ice
demon.
phoenix star movement. Duan Mu
Chapter
Xiaoman shouted at the
2029.
same time. Duan Mu Qingtian
A series
fell
of strange
into the demon Dao,
ancient runes
and
flowed
now the
on
goddess
huge
is seducing
ice palm,
an arrogant
and it
breath.
quickly tore
How interesting.
through the golden
The holy
space
mountain
with a
has been
shrill
bullied
cry.
to this extent
It charged
by
towards the
people like
Saint
you.
Monarch golden
The heavens are
light
blind.
in tandem
Saint
with the
Extermination's
blazing
face
Emperor
was
Sparrow.
cold
Along
and
the way,
violent.
the
A
void
golden
trembled,
saber
and the
suddenly
space
appeared in
collapsed
his hand
inch by inch
as he roared
The
furiously.
divine light that had
World
gathered
cleansing,
because of the
golden
stillness
rain.
turned
Saint
into
Extermination
steam again, roared at the
Aura.
sky. The Emperor
Instantly,
Sparrow
a
flapped
wild
its
holy
wings,
monarch
and the ice
Aura
phoenix
shot
flew
out
in
from
the
the
snow.
blade.
The
Elder
two huge
Saint
figures of the divine
Extermination.
birds
Don't be
instantly
rash.
spread out.
Elder
in the depths
Saint
of the
Extermination.
void. One of them was
immediately
burning
realized
with flames
that the
that could
situation was
burn
bad.
everything in the
He
world,
clenched his teeth,
while the other
and a
was
golden
freezing
light
with eyes that could
rose from his
seal
feet.
all living
In the next
beings
second,
in the world.
he had already
The two
retreated
supreme
300
powers
meters
of
away
ice
with a
and
shocked
fire
expression.
merged to the
His junior
extreme
brother,
in an
Saint
instant.
Extermination,
Instantly,
had always
an
been
ancient
unyielding.
aura filled
Encountering
heaven and
such an
earth,
enemy,
and a
as
pressure
soon as he left
spread
the
out
holy
like a
mountain,
storm, naturally
boom,
filled his
under the
heart with
terrifying
anger.
aura.
Seeing that
Everyone's
Saint Extermination
extermination
was
to
about to
tremble.
fight to
They had
the
never
death.
seen such
Saint
a
Extermination's
strange scene in their
expression
lives. Even
changed
Duanmu
drastically.
Xiong Tu
He stood in the
and
distance
Xiang
with a
House,
gloomy
who were at the
expression.
side.
You're
Could feel the
overestimating
terror of
yourself.
this move. Su
Bang,
he shook
bang,
his
bang.
head.
The
The
divine
divine
birds
birds, on the
soared
other
into
hand,
the sky,
was not in a
and a
hurry.
huge attack
After exchanging
turned into a
glance,
ball of light.
the
in
two of them
void
attacked at the
and
same
blasted
time.
on the golden
Boom.
light circle.
Elder
Immediately,
Saint Extermination's
the entire
body
void
seemed to be
began
coated with a
rumble,
layer of
and the
golden
surrounding
wax.
Saint Mountain,
The blood in his
instantly
body
entered a
instantly
barbaric
turned
world.
into
Ice
golden
and
rain
snow covered the
sprayed
sky.
out.
The
And flames
condensed
invaded.
energy of
Clang.
heaven and
With a violent
earth
explosion,
rapidly fell
thunder
down.
roared and
Go to hell.
lightning flashed
Bastard
in the
couple.
surroundings.
Saint
Emitting an
Extermination's hands did
unparalleled
not stop
pressure.
moving.
The
as he
golden
shouted
light
loudly.
circle exploded
Elder Saint
on the
Extermination's
spot,
eyes
and the
widened
entire
as he looked at
world
Su,
rumbled
Yi, and
endlessly.
Duanmu Xiao,
An earth-shattering
who was cold as ice
explosion
sculptures.
blasted the sacred
His
mountain
tragic
into
voice
pieces.
resounded in
Countless
everyone's
pitch-black
ears.
spatial
The
cracks
golden rain
appeared in the
rumbled,
void.
and
It was a
at the
ghastly
same time,
in
every
void,
raindrop was
Su,
accompanied by the
Yi, and
sonorous
Duanmu
sound
Xiao
of wind
quickly
and
retreated
thunder.
100 feet
As the
away.
raindrops fell
Looking
into
at
the
the
air,
similarly shocked
a
Saint
huge
Feng
pressure
and Saint Yin
as if
in
an
the distance.
overlord had awakened
At this moment,
and a god
Su,
was about to
he was
destroy the
incomparably
world,
shocked.
spread
Through the Saint
throughout the
Monarch
world.
Chi,
Today,
the blood demon,
if I
killing
die
god
for the
the
holy
Holy
mountain,
he could feel
all
that
the
after
disciples
Saint
of the
Feng
holy
and
mountain
Saint Yin
must
came
remember
out,
that
it would
as
be
long as you
extremely
live,
difficult for
you
him
must fight
to
to the
activate
death
the
with
power of the
imperial
golden
palace.
elemental formation
Kill that
with the
bastard
cultivation
Su Yi.
level of origin.
Everything happened
too
too
quickly. Suruga, Shangwan Tianshan, and the chapel of the Imperial Palace had all lost
Speaking
their
of
minds
which,
in shock.
among the
Could it
6
be
elders
that
of the
another
Holy
of
Mountain,
the Holy Mountains,
Shang Yu,
6 elders
Shang
had to
Feng,
die, and
and
Shang
8th
Yun
level
are the
origin
real guardians of the
domain
great
expert.
golden
Candies
elemental
weren't
formation.
something that could be
Shang
found
Hua,
everywhere.
Shang Mia,
The gazes of
and
countless
Shang Qing
people
are
in
the
surroundings
auxiliary guardians.
suddenly tightened.
Even if
They
you have
swallowed
control of the
a
formation
mouthful of
core,
saliva
in terms of
and were at a
experience and
loss.
cultivation,
Golden
with them
lights
around,
sprinkled
you can't
down from
use
the
the
horizon.
great golden
And many
elemental
people were
formation
clearly aware
as
that this
you
was the
wish.
desperate move
In his
of
mind,
an 8th
a
level
fearful
origin
voice
domain
gradually
stage
sounded.
expert.
Chi Fei
Saint
Hong
Destroyer
stood in the
is
heavenly
really
origin
unyielding
demon
soul.
You actually
The
dared
overwhelming
to go head to
Saint
head with
King
my
Chi
sister.
poured into him
Your
like a
courage
river,
is
and
admirable.
his pale face made him look
Amidst the
extremely
tense
haggard.
atmosphere. Half-step
Only
to Yuan
Duanmu
Tian.
Qingtian's lips
Shang
curled
Feng
up
retracted
slightly.
his aura.
He remained
and looked
calm
at Duanmu
and
Xiao
unruffled.
The
Not
goddess who had been
panicking at all.
staying in the Yuqian
Following
Palace for a
that,
long time.
an even more
His face
shocking scene
instantly
began
began
to unfold before their
I didn't
eyes.
expect that I would be
Above
able to
the
meet
golden sky,
a half-step
the
Yuan
energy
Tian
of the golden
cultivator in my
rain
lifetime
exploded in
and
all
she is so
directions
young
in a ring.
The more
shaped
Sheng
mare.
Yun and
The
Shang Feng
vigorous
looked at her,
and surging
the more shocked
saint
they were.
ruler,
Other
Qi
than the Shang Yu
vaguely
elder
brought
who had
about
reached
strange
half-step
phenomena.
to Yuan Tian.
The Chi of a saint ruler
No one in the Holy
is
Mountain
nothing
had reached
more
half-step
than
to
this.
Yuan Tian.
Duanmu
For thousands
Xiaoman's
of years.
expression didn't
The Shang Yu
change in the
elder
slightest.
didn't ask about
She
the
gently
affairs of the
raised her
Holy Mountain
jade-like
for
arm,
hundreds of years.
and a large
He
expanse
cultivated
of
in
wind
seclusion
and
for
snow whistled
800
out
years
from under her
before
hand.
finally
In the
reaching
sky that was
half-step
filled with
to Yuan
golden
Tian.
light.
I didn't expect there to
extremely
be
violent
such a little
snowstorm
girl who
slowly
reached
rose
half-step
up
to Yuan
and there were
Tian
extreme energy
in just 100
fluctuations
years.
all around.
Congratulations,
Everyone,
Shang
including
Feng
Saint
and
Destroyer
Shang Yun
himself,
clapped their hands
felt
at the
a
same
surge
time.
of fear when
And there
they
was a
saw
hint
the
of
ice
envy and
crystals
jealousy
in front of them
in their gloomy
freezing
eyes.
the golden rain.
Then,
How
Shang
is this
Feng and
possible?
Shang Yun looked at
Shang
Su
Qing's
Yi
face
and Xiang
stiffened,
House,
and his lips
and a nobody
suddenly
in front of
twitched.
us
Under
can control the
countless
formation
astonished
core
gazes,
of our great
a green
golden
figure
elemental
charged
formation,
above the snowstorm.
and a bastard
A
with
demonic
Saint
battle
King Chi
armor condensed
Ha, ha, ha.
around his body.
What a joke.
And radiance
Shang
surged.
Yun's wrinkled face
Su
was
Yi's hair
filled with
fluttered behind him,
unprecedented killing
and a scarlet
intent,
light
as he
secretly
said in a deep
overflowed
voice.
from his
If that's the
eyes.
case,
Everyone's
don't even
gaze
think
was
about
fixed
walking
on the
out of the
figure in the
holy
sky,
mountain alive
and
today.
every one of them shuddered.
Even if you're a
What
half-step
is
to
Su Yi
Yuan
doing?
Tian goddess. Is he going to kill
Ding,
the
ding.
Saint Destroyer
The
elder
sky
too?
rumbled filled.
That's the
and
holy
vast
mountain's
space in front
final
of them was
accumulation
filled with exploding
now on.
golden light.
The holy mountain
Su
and the
Yi
Bawang sect
Xiahong
are
House,
bound to
Duan
fight to
Muxiao
the
Man,
death.
and
The Holy Mountain's
disciples all had long faces as they beat their chests.
It seems like there are
and
two
stomped their
half-step
feet.
to Yuan
Large
Tian
amounts of
cultivators in the
tears
Holy Mountain,
and blood
and the
swirled
Shengyu
in
elder
the
hasn't
air
come out
as
yet.
they looked at the
What should we
sky
do?
in despair.
The faces of
when
Long
one had
Hassan
hope,
and
the
that
other
hope was
elders
about
were
to
ashen
disappear
as they
before one's
watched the
eyes.
situation
This kind of
before them
pain
nervously.
was the most
They
painful.
unconsciously
Clang,
swallowed
clang.
a mouthful
Sue,
of saliva.
he stood
and
proudly
gulped.
above the
These
snowstorm,
vassals
and his
and
eyes were
elders
cold.
who could dominate
The aura
outside
around him was like a
world
tornado,
were now
completely
in a desolate and
powerless
quiet aura
in front of
swept
these
across
two
the entire
seniors of
area.
Sacred Mountain.
Every
An origin
Holy
ancestor
Mountain
could
will
already be
atone for
considered
their
an
sins
expert or
to
elder
Duan
of
Mu,
top sect.
Qing
A
Tian
peak
today,
Yuan domain,
Saint
or
Destroyer,
even a half
watch
step into
carefully.
Yuan Tian.
As soon as he finished
was definitely
speaking,
the strongest
Su Yi's
weapon
blood
of top
demon
sect.
killing god
Sister.
sword suddenly slashed through the air.
The Duan Mu
and a
Qing
scarlet
Tian,
light filled
who
his
was
eyes
completely
before
covered by the
disappearing
black
in a
robe,
flash.
clenched his teeth.
Soon,
as
the
killing's
sword's edge
intent
was
flashed
piercing
in his
and
sword-like
strange
eyes.
runes
In the
surged
distant
out
sky,
from the golden rain.
Duan Mu Xiaoman
in the
was
sky
as cold
filled
as
with
ice.
golden rain.
Her
Two
face that was like an
thunderbolts
ice sculpture was
transformed into
suffused
incomparably
with a trace
huge
of anger
palms that
as she
ruthlessly
spoke
grabbed
boldly.
at Saint
For
Destroyer
so many years,
and Shang
the Sacred Mountain has been playing
Walala.
tricks. The
So was
huge
you
golden
two who
palms
instructed
brought
them
along
to do
an
so.
enormous force that
Perfect.
could distort
Today
the void
is the day
and instantly
that heavenly
envelop
command
the two of
palace
them. And
and a
Sacred
monstrous
Mountain's killing
yet even
intent whistled
Elder
out.
Sheng Feng
and Elder,
seeing the sudden
Sheng
arrival
Yin
of the
both
golden
grinned
palms
and raised their
Saint
heads to
Destroyer,
laugh.
their
And
smiles
Shang Qing's
instantly
expressions
froze in the
changed
air.
drastically.
Elder Sheng Feng
and their eyes
and Elder
rapidly
Sheng Yin
churned. Looked at the
Not
group
good.
of Imperial
Saint
Heaven Palace
Destroyer,
disciples
retreat.
behind them, and said
Sheng
in unison,
Qing
shouted
you?
loudly.
Two brats
And with a shake of
from
her
the
arm,
aristocratic
the
families
aura of
wanted
a
to destroy the
ninth-level
Sacred
origin
Mountain.
domain
Ridiculous.
realm expert
How
poured out
arrogant.
like a flood.
Lan
Then,
Yelyin,
a bloody
and
mist
Yumal
filled the
could
air,
no longer hold
and before
themselves
Saint
back.
Destroyer
At
could
this
react,
moment,
their
the place where he
faces were
stood
as
was
dark as
instantly
steel as they
smacked by the
shouted.
palms.
The two elders
turning
can give it a
scarlet
try.
red.
I don't
In the
think I
blink
need
of an
to
eye,
explain the difference
Su Yi's
between
body was
aristocratic
crushed into
families
nothingness
and
by the
forces.
lightning palms.
Lon Bailey,
Annihilation,
coldly.
golden light.
She was the celestial
Bang.
maiden
On the
of
other
Ocean
side.
City.
Even though she had
Sheng
brought
Qing
Divi
forcefully
Yuma here
broke through the
without
attack of
the
the
Heavenly
Golden
Lord's
Palms,
permission,
and his
with her
entire body
status,
transformed
Mountain
into a ball
would
of
not
light
dare
that
to do
pierced through the
anything to
encirclement
her.
of the golden
The same
lightning
goes for the myriad
and crashed
sword
into the
alliance.
mountain forest.
Elders,
rumble,
please don't
under
destroy
the gazes
the
of
Sacred
the
Mountain.
surroundings that
A
seemed
trace
to
of
have
fluctuation
frozen.
appeared in
huge
her
palms
azure
in
blue
the sky
eyes.
disappeared.
She was like the
once
brightest
again,
pearl in
and
the
the
dark
spatial
night
ripples
that could
rapidly
see through
shattered.
people's hearts.
Many people present
Suddenly,
had their gazes
Elder Sheng
on
Feng
Elder
and
Elder
Sheng
Sheng
Qing.
Yun's
Within the
eyes
ruins,
flickered slightly.
Elder
The
Sheng
gloominess
Qing's face
was quickly
covered in
replaced
blood,
by fear,
and his veins were bulging
two
like
whooshing
worms.
sounds could be heard.
His entire body had
Suruga
already
and the
turned
Golden
into a
Fire
pile
Beast
of
King
mud.
stood in the
His
air
bones and
as their
flesh
Yuan
had been clawed
domain
into
and
mush,
demon domain
and even a
powers
ninth-level
spread out.
origin
In an
domain
instant,
realm
the
expert
golden
had
space was
exhausted
filled
an
with
enormous amount of
piercingly
energy
cold sword
to
radiance
finally
and
escape from that
demonic
attack.
aura. This
Shang
scene
Jian
stunned
everyone.
Suga.
The
Is here to
experts,
experience
the holy
skills
mountain
of the Sacred
disciples,
Mountain,
and the members of the
Balwang
Imperial
sect,
Palace were all
Golden
shocked
Fire Beast King,
and
is
unable
here
to
to
recover
follow my
from their
master.
shock.
He's
Hearing
dead.
this,
Even
Sui
Saint glanced
Destroyer
at the two
Elder is
familiar
dead.
figures from the corner of his eyes
Xiong
and felt a
Tu
warm
completely
current
collapsed,
flowing through his
and it was
heart.
as though his throat
Master,
was being
I know all
choked
about
by
your
someone.
past.
His
I
eyes
also understand the
constantly
pain
darted
darted
around.
I
as he
promise
tried
you
his best
that I
to
will
search
bring
for
you
traces
back
of
to
Saint
glory
Destroyer
in this
Elder.
life.
I
After
will
searching
end
this
this
battle
with
with my
my
own
his
hands,
eyes dimmed.
Under everyone's
Suruga
watchful
did not
eyes,
expect
the
Su
fifth-ranked
to say
Saint
such
Destroyer
sincere
Elder
words
had
at
also
such a critical
died
moment.
under the power
He was
of the
stunned on
Holy
the spot,
Mountain's array,
and
the
tears
entire
flashed
scene
in his
was
old
silent
eyes.
as a bleak
Beast King,
atmosphere.
you are
filled
also
the
my
air.
brother in the future.
The storm was still
Balwang
surging.
sect.
And
Let's reach
everyone
the peak
felt
together.
as though they had fallen
Su,
into an
he sighed.
extreme chill.
The Golden Fire
They were
Beast
trembling
King
as
was
their
so
hearts
loyal,
and
but
souls
Shang Qing was
palpitated.
killed by the two
Gulp.
in front of him.
Most of the
Su,
Holy
he
Mountain
felt a chill
disciples
in his
present
heart
had
toward the
completely given up
ruthlessness
on
of the
resisting,
Sacred Mountain,
allowing the
Xiang
ferocious
House,
beast to
since
trample
you have
on their
completely
bodies.
awakened,
A kind of
you wanna try?
extreme despair
Suyi's
filled
mouth
the air,
flashed a trace
and
of
the aura
slyness.
of death was awe-inspiring.
His eyes were
under
fixed on the
countless
sky
gazes
that was filled
an
with the
azure
chi
robed
of the
figure
sacred
once
monarch.
again
A
streaked
bold
across the
idea
sky,
flashed in
and
his
like a
mind. ghost, Xiang stared at Elder Su.
He was referring to the
complete golden sky
Sui,
suppressing
today,
stone. You used
half
my
of the
golden
golden
sky
sky
array
suppressing
to
stone
stone
was
was
enough
enough. In the
to make
future,
the sacred mountain
if the holy
stand
mountain
tall
rises
for
again,
thousands of
we will
years.
definitely
The
annihilate
complete
your
chi
soul
of the sacred
and
monarch
shatter your
would
bones.
definitely have
The
an
holy mountain will
earth-shattering
not
power.
perish.
So
Xiang House's
easily.
eyes
Just you
moved
wait.
slightly, and the aura around her rolled
Chapter
rapidly.
2030.
A trace of battle,
Falling in love
intent
with
floated
Yuli
in front of her
pool
eyes,
blood in
as
the
she
deep
said
pit.
without blinking.
Elder Sheng
Of course,
who
this
still
is
had
the trace
power
of life,
given to me
smiled
by the
the
sacred
sacred
master.
master.
Then
I want to use it to
he looked up
avenge
without
the
saying
sacred
a
master,
word.
and his
All
eyes
right,
were filled
Su,
with
he
the
shouted
will
softly.
to die.
You
His
talk too
eyes
much
moved
nonsense.
to the two old men
The
in
reason
the
Sacred
distance,
Mountain
whose
is in the
faces
state
were as
today
pale,
is
as
because
steel.
you have eyes
Elder
but no
Duanmu,
heart.
Let the
You can't
younger
see the
generation
and you
settle
don't have
the
a
matter
conscience."
of the sacred
As he
mountain.
spoke,
I have a
Su
grudge
raised
against
the long
sacred
sword in his
mountain,
hand again,
and Xiahong
said
House
coldly,
has a grudge
"The
against
array
the
is
sacred
under
mountain.
my control.
Let the two of
and
us
strong
purge this
are
filthy
respected.
sacred
Fine.
mountain.
I
and
won't
return
use
it to
sacred
you.
mountains
What?
technique in the
Su,
end. I'll send you to
what
hell.
are you trying to do?
I'll let you die
Duan
with
Mu
no regrets."
Xiongtu's expression
An
changed
incomparably
drastically.
fierce shadow
In the next
of a
second,
flaming divine
Xiahong House
bird
and
gradually
Su,
unfolded.
he had already charged
and a wisp
toward the
of
sacred
divine
mountain,
flame
and sacred
shot
cloud
out from the
like
sword.
arrows
The
released from
flames
a bow.
were torrential.
Su, he gave
and in an
Duan Mu
instant,
Xiaoman a
the
look
temperature of the
and
entire
transmitted his
space
voice
reached its
Xiaoman.
peak. Block
Sui,
everyone for me.
Wait,
Trust me.
a gentle
Boom.
and magnetic
In the blink of an
voice
eye,
came from
Duan Mu
behind.
Xiaoman's
Su,
brows were
he
tightly
turned his head
knitted
slightly,
but she still
and
drew
a yellow
line
figure
across the
floated
sky
over from
with her
behind.
jade-like arm.
It was none other than
Instantly,
Xiahong Lu.
A trace of the
ice-like
temperature of the
ripples
golden light
flashed
had
across
faded,
the golden
and
space.
Xiahong Lu was
The enormous,
now full of
illusory
energy.
figure
His sword
of the
eyes
snow
were
divine
filled
bird
with
behind her
unparalleled
was like a
majesty,
courtyard,
as if
the
he was a
ancient
supreme
aura
expert.
once again enveloped
Su,
the
he raised his
heaven and
eyes,
earth.
and the giant
surging
sword
white
in his
storm
hand hung
separated
in
everyone
midair.
from Su,
Under his observation,
and
Xiahong
Lu's
Lu's
aura
house like a giant
was
barrier,
faintly showing signs of a huge
No matter how
breakthrough.
Duan
You're
Mu
awake?
Xiongtu shouted,
How do you feel?
He could not break
Xiahong,
through the net
Lu
woven
shook
from
his
ice
head.
and snow.
His eyes were
Duan
still
Mu,
filled with the
Xiongtu
lingering
anxiously
pain
shouted,
of losing a holy venerable.
but seeing sacred mountain
Chapter
in this state,
2034.
his heart palpitated.
Palace Master
even
Xiao
more.
Man, let me in.
After I woke
How
up,
can I let
saw
them
good
face
show.
the two
He
elders
laughed
alone?
bitterly.
They are the
and
last
looked at the
forces
corpses
of the holy
in
mountain
flesh on the mountain.
The group of people
ridge.
behind him
He
were
couldn't
also
help but
anxious.
sigh in his heart.
Countless people
At this
gasped.
moment,
Could it
standing
be
among
that
the
Su,
crowd,
you wanted
there was
to
a
team
woman
up
with a
the
hot
Xiahong
figure
House
and a
defeat the
slightly
half-seductive
seductive face
Tian brothers?
watching Xiahong.
What kind of arrogance
Lu
was
closely.
this?
When
Did they really want to
Xiahong Lu came out of the
overturn
golden
the
elemental
entire
array,
holy mountain
he had been
with their
protected
own
by the
strength?
people of Yuqian Palace.
Su,
and she
he is
didn't have
too
the chance
arrogant.
to take care
He
of
killed
Xiahong
Sheng
Lu.
Hua and
Now that
Sheng
Xiahong
Ye
Lu
with the metal
had woken
elemental
up,
formation.
Li Ling,
Does he think he
who
can
was
kill
hiding in
Sheng
the corner of
Feng
the guests,
and
finally
Sheng Ye?
began to feel
This brat
emotional.
is digging
Her
his
face
own
was
grave.
slightly red
Elder
from
Sheng
excitement,
Feng and
she
Elder
called
Sheng
out
Yun
softly,
have to support
Fifth Saint,
the holy mountain.
Fifth Saint has
Su,
woken up.
Yi.
Let's see
Turning
how
to
you
look
can
at
continue to
Lu
be
Ruashi.
arrogant.
The
Li
disciples
Ling
of the
instantly
Saint
appeared
Mountain,
beside,
who were already
Lu
badly
Ruashi
mutilated
and took her
from
dripping
Yuqian
with
Palace
blood.
people.
All had
Palace
ecstatic
Master
smiles
Yue.
on their faces.
Please treat Sister
Originally,
Ruashi
the Heavenly
immediately.
Command Palace
Li Ling
and the
quietly
aristocratic
came
families
behind
were here.
Old Man Guyu.
And there was also the
Her
half-step
gentle voice
Yuan
was like
Tian
flowing
Duan
water,
Xiaoman, and her
Yet,
eyes were
Su,
clear.
he was arrogant
Guyu
enough
was
to
slightly
face the two
surprised
Saint
when he turned
Mountain
around.
and Saint
However,
Cloud elders
when he
alone.
saw Lu
It was like an
Ruashi
ant trying
in
to
his
shake a
arms,
tree,
he immediately
or a star trying to
understood
compete
Li
with the
Ling's
moon.
intentions.
On the other
At
side,
present,
confusion
Holy Mountain
and
was
confusion
already
appeared
plunged into
everyone's
misery
faces
and suffering.
Lon
If
Balian
this
and
continued,
Duguyama frowned.
Holy Mountain
Lon
would
Balian
definitely be
sneered.
massacred. This brat, he
According
always
to
wants to
Su,
show off
Yi,
and take
and
such
Duan
risks.
Mu,
Did the
Xiaoman's
aristocratic
temperament.
families
Holy
really
Mountain
come
would
here
cease to
support
exist.
him?
Su,
Imperial
he wouldn't be
Celestial
so
Palace
irrational.
wasn't
The
afraid
Long family
that Sacred
is
Mountain would
behind
cease
the
to
Holy
exist.
Mountain.
But
He
the probably
probably
doesn't want
behind
us to
Sacred
have
Mountain
too much
was
conflict
still
with the
unclear.
Long family.
Directly destroying
Duguyama
Sacred Mountain
squeezed
wasn't
out
a
a
good
smile
thing
from his worry.
for Su,
Duguyama,
Yi, and
who
the
was
five
standing at the
saints.
side,
Guyue's
frowned
eyes trembled
and
as he
pursed her
glanced
lips.
at
She
Duan
suddenly
Mu
thought of
Xiaoman
something
from the
and
corner
walked
of his
towards
eyes.
the Yuqian Palace.
Then he said to
Lon
Li
Balian
Ling in a low
watched
voice,
Duguyama
"Girl,
leave
come with me to the
and
side.
immediately
Come."
sighed lightly.
At this
and
time,
said, everyone's
each and
eyes
every
were
one of
focused
them
on
is
Su,
worrisome.
Yi,
Palace
Xiahong
Master
Lu,
Guyu
and Duan Mu
Ruashi.
Xiaoman. How is
Xiahong
Mr. Washi's
Lu's
face was
Duguyama
still pale,
looked down at the
but her eyes were
unconscious
filled with
Ruashi.
determination.
Guyue
Su,
held a
Yi,
thin silver needle
I heard
in
what
his
the
left
Holy
hand
Venerate
and
said,
inserted it
but can
into
you let me
Lu
verify
Ruashi's
something
Feng
first?
Shi acupoint.
Oh, his
Speaking
forehead
of which,
was covered
Xiahong
with
Lu
small
was the
beads
main
of sweat,
character of this
but he
Holy
didn't say a
Mountain
word.
grand competition.
Ruashi
She naturally
isn't
knew
injured.
what was
I just
hidden
don't know why
behind
she's
Holy
still
Mountain.
unconscious.
Su
Li
nodded
Ling was a
and
little
put
sad.
away the blood.
She then looked at the
demonic
battling
killing
goddess.
gods.
He walked
I've
to
learned medicine
Duan
from
Mu
my master
Xiaoman
for a few
side,
days.
and the
Let me
anger
take
in
a
his
look.
eyes gradually
Duguyama
subsided.
opened his blue eyes.
What do you want to
and
ask?
spread his
Ask
soul
away.
energy over
After a
Lu
moment of
Ruashi's body. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes and said in surprise. Her eyes trembled as she stared at Elder Shang-Qin, who was lying Palace Master Xiaoman. Elder, release the barrier and let me in. Today, Duan Mushu-Tu's eyes were benign holy maidens. He could clearly feel that Shang Feng and Shang Yun's holy king as a grand elder had reached tell me how Yu Chi Chong Feng, even though Su, the golden sky array, and Snow Red House attracted much stronger than their peers. They were still far from being comparable to super light flashed across Elder and Shang-Qin's eyes, and he coughed out another mouthful. They are far more powerful. He said miserably. There's no one else. What is the meaning of this? Isn't he also on the sacred mountain? Shang-Qin, that thumb-ring does not belong with a trace of throbbing. You six elders have always been responsible for protecting and strengthening Xiaoman's eyes. Don't need me to say it out loud. Where did the thumb ring come from? Who was the one who planned House? and
Speak.
floated in front
Xiahong
of the
Lu
two
said
elders
sternly.
in an instant.
He knew that
Sheng
Yuqi
Feng
Changfeng
and Sheng Yun
dared
looked
to be
so
so
arrogant
separating
because he had the
the
backing
trace
of
of
the Grand
surprise
Elder.
was quickly
To him,
replaced by ridicule.
Even if Yuqi
Their eyes were
Changfeng
filled with
won the
mockery
Holy Mountain
and
Grand
ridicule.
competition,
Sheng
it
Hua
did not matter.
and Sheng Mian,
However,
actually died in the
Yuqi
hands of a brat
Changfeng
like
killed the
What
holy
joke?
venerate.
Elder
The
Sheng
one who
Feng's
raised
eyes
them.
were
This was
piercingly
something that
cold as he
Xiahong
stared at the
Lu
blood demon
could not
killing
tolerate.
Godsword in
There are some
Su Yi's
things
hand.
that are better left
Kid,
unsaid.
I should admire your talent.
That's right.
You could be said to be the
Yuqi
first
Changfeng
person
isn't
in
good
the sacred
enough,
mountain,
but
to be able
supporting
to
a puppet
activate
is
the
better than
holy
worshiping
King
a
Chi.
bastard of
It's a
unknown
pity that you
origin.
have to go against
Fifth
the
Holy
sacred
Prince
mountain.
is not a
Otherwise,
bastard.
this old man
In the distance
would have wanted to take
Li
you
Ling
in as a
squatted
disciple.
in the air.
She
Hearing
heard Sheng
Sheng
Yun's
Yun's
words
words
clearly.
Su Yi's
and
lips
angrily
curled
pursed
into
her
a
cold
cold
smile.
Her eyes
It was as if he was
brimming
looking
with
at a
tears.
rotten corpse. He was
Only
extremely
she,
disgusted
who had
and
served
said
the
coldly,
fifth holy prince
I was
in his
wondering
daily
why
life
Wang
and
Chuanda was
practiced
so
martial
disgusting.
arts.
It
Knew
turns
that
out
although
that
the
he has
fifth
martial
holy prince
granduncles
was not
like
a talkative person.
You want to take me
In order to
as a
uncover the
disciple?
mystery of
However,
his origins,
I can give you a chance.
live openly in
Scram
this
back
world,
to the mountains
and when the Holy
and
Mountain
never
Grand
participate
competition,
in the
he
affairs
had
of the
neglected
sacred
sleep
mountain.
and food.
If you do,
racking
I
his
can
brains
consider
to
sparing
find a
your
way
lives.
to advance on the
Ha
martial
ha.
path.
As if they had heard
Relying
the
on his own
funniest joke
strength,
in the world,
he was able to
Sheng
cultivate to
Feng
a
and
level
Sheng
that
Yun's
surpassed
eyes
Yuqi
turned sharp
Changfeng.
again.
They
How
said
could such
with
a person be a
incomparable
bastard?
resentment.
Su Yi and
Arrogant
Duan
brat.
Xiaomin
Both
pay with your
frowned
life for the
at Sheng
disciples
Qing's
of the
words.
sacred mountain.
Looking at Xiahong Lu's
Looking
back,
up to the sky,
Su
Sheng
sighed.
Feng, who would
and
have
Sheng
known
Yun
that
roared.
Xiahong Lu
Their eyes
was the
flashed
true
with
son of
coldness.
the sacred mountain?
Suddenly,
The reincarnation
Holy
of Jing
King
Jintian
Qi surged
was an
out, and a
absolutely
holy king,
pure
celestial
bloodline.
idol,
The
rose
sacred
behind
mountain was
celestial
simply
idol,
digging
sacred
its
and
own
solemn.
grave.
The originally
So,
withered
you didn't plan to let the
faces
sacred
instantly
mountain
became
grand
rosy
competition
and
go
plump.
smoothly from
Sheng
start.
Feng
And Sheng
Xiahong
Yan also
Lu's
seemed
gaze
to have
darkened.
merged together.
He had already
Their
confirmed
figures
that the
overlapped
Grand Elder
with the
was the
illusory
mastermind
image
behind
the
the
scheme.
scheme.
It was impossible to distinguish
Sheng
between
Qing's
the real
eyes
body
instantly
and the
lost their
illusory
luster.
image.
He
It was even
refused to
more
comment on
impossible to
Xiahong
tell
Lu's
where
words
the two brothers
and continued
were.
to laugh bitterly.
Bastard brat, and you bastard,
letting out a long
you stole my
breath.
holy king
Xiahong
Qi.
Lu's eyes
Back
were
together.
bloodshot as he
Boom.
coldly said,
A dazzling
I'll give you
golden
one
energy
last chance.
Storm
Who gave you the
rumbled
thumb
out
ring?
from the holy
And who wants
king,
the holy venerate
celestial
dead?
idol. The
Just as
illusory
he finished
image
speaking,
waved its
Shang
palm,
Qing's mouth
and
opened
instantly,
slightly.
8
Suddenly,
arms appeared
a
on
golden
the holy
thunderbolt
king,
descended
celestial
from
idol.
sky.
The arms
Xiahong
were
House,
incomparably thick,
Su,
and
Yi,
each of them
Duan
looked like they
Xiao
were made
Man,
of golden steel.
and the others quickly
They covered the
retreated.
sky.
The sky
and
was
earth
immediately
like a collapsing
filled
mountain.
with wind.
Looking
and
from
thunder.
afar,
The
one would
sound
have the
of thunder
urge to
resounding
crawl on the ground
through the air
and
kowtow.
Elder Sheng
respectfully.
Qing once
8th
more
Division
turned
Guardian
into a wisp
King,
of black
golden
smoke
arrow,
and
Kung
vanished
Chong.
into the air.
On the 8 arms,
As the black
there were
smoke
sabers,
rose,
spears,
the smell of burnt
swords,
flesh
halberds,
began to
hatchets,
dissipate.
hooks,
Who goes
and
there?
tridents.
Su,
At the same time,
immediately
golden
swept
light
his
filled
gaze
the air.
across the entire place. Only
Every
to see an
illusory image of a
overwhelming
weapon
murderous aura
seemed to carry the
drifting
aura
out
of
from
a
the
saint
depths
weapon.
of the sacred mountain.
At the same time,
someone killed
they blasted
Elder
towards
Sheng
Su,
Qing.
Yi, and
Duan
Zhong
Mu
Lu.
Xiongtu cried out
Everyone
in
present
alarm.
was completely
The crowd was
dumbfounded,
stunned,
and several
Duan Mu
breaths later,
Xiongtu
gasps
was even
could be
more
heard.
shocked. He murmured, "These two old
Chapter
men have
2031.
cultivated to the level
Falling
of
in love
8th
with you,
Division
the hair
Guardian King.
on everyone's
Among
back
the holy
stood on
King
end,
Qi,
and their
other than the most
terrified
primitive
gazes
innate
locked onto
holy
the depths
King
of the
Qi.
sacred mountain.
The most powerful
Those 3 old
martial
fogies are
technique
finally
was the
coming out.
six-path holy King
Duan Mu,
Truebody.
Qing
The first holy
eyes
emperor relied
flickered,
on this
and an
technique
indescribable
to establish
sense of
his sect.
danger welled up
Secondly,
in his heart.
The 8th
For the
Division
first
Law
time,
King's true
Duan Mu
body
Qing
was the
Tian's
most
brows
earth-shadowed.
furrowed.
It was the
hint of
most
fear
terrifying
appeared in his
martial
clear
skill
eyes.
among
Are the
all
3
the
old
saint
ancestors
ruler
coming
Qi.
out?
After
my God.
merging with the 8th
The
Division
sacred
Law
mountain
King's
disciples were
body,
still
not to mention the
resistant.
half-step
But when they
Yuan
saw the
Ti on
hazy
stage,
divine light
the 8th
in the
Division
depths
Law
of the
King's
sacred
true body's
mountain,
true body,
as if a blessing
was
from
also the
heaven,
most powerful
their eyes
martial
were
skill.
filled with
In
excitement.
the holy mountain,
Young man,
it was said
the far
to be
sends here.
invincible. The sacred
So
mountain has
strong.
already made a
Countless
big move.
people were left
Why be so
speechless?
aggressive?
Their eyes
An
filled
old
with
voice
horror.
came from the
Many
other side
disciples
of the
of the
holy
sacred
mountain.
Boom.
Knelt on the ground.
Heaven and earth
Watching
energy
the battle with
instantly
great
soared
respect
into the sky
as they shouted, and a sacred
Brother,
aura
brother,
spread out from the
this
depths
is our
of the
holy mountain's It was as if a heavy bomb had been thrown. The holy mountain is in boundless waves. Suddenly, clamorous layers upon layers of spatial ripples, the holy mountain surged out. Everyone had the same thought, and the light illuminated the sky. Hanging there, King Chi, Duanmu Qingtian, and Duanmu Xiaoman's hearts tightened to the same time. And the Saint Fire Elder rushed out small black figures flying up and down in the sky. Ding dang, in the void of heaven and Zhonglu, quickly circulated their majestic aura under the erosion of the holy King Chi, causing the ground to tremble, dodging the attacks of the 8 arms. The wild beasts in the mountains all laid on the ground. The 8 arms directly tore, and their beast souls trembled. A hazy light image tore a large piece of space in front of them. King Chi. The entire golden world rumbled endlessly, as the blood demon killing god sword in Su Yi's hand trembled violently, and he could feel the sword hilt trembling, as if it had sensed a strong, who was continuously using the rising King Chi was being refined by the mysterious light ball, was like a flickering shadow within the gaps of the golden light. And Sui knew that it was the half piece of heaven-suppressing rumbling yuan Chi that was absorbing the Saint King Chi. He turned his head, and a trace of coldness, such a strong Saint King Chi, was comparable to the innate Saint King Chi in the array. I'll be in front, and Su, and you'll be at the back. Xiahong House, lend me your strength, and Duanmu Xiaoman's break this disfigurement with me. Serious. Suddenly, it should be Sheng Yu, muffled sound of energy reverberated everywhere. Who having a terrifying gale filled the sky like a volcanic anger surged in Xiahong House's eyes, and Zhuhong Lu even were in the center elder of the sacred mountain, surrounded by a violent will and tyrannical when the bottom line was crossed. They continuously one half-step Yuan Tian dodged the explosions, and 2 peak 9th stage holding the heavy domain stage cultivators. He closed his eyes. Half-step Yuan Tian stage cultivator is still hiding inside. Suddenly, he felt an extremely surging metal-attributed energy. The cold and fierce wind around her body began to circulate rapidly. His left hand quickly formed another half-step Yuan Tian, and the aura of the Origin Supreme technique instantly enveloped his entire body. He looked at the golden aura entering his body, and his expression turned ruthless. Chila. A dense and sharp metal-attributed energy pierced through behind her from the corner of her eyes. And an extremely strong smile appeared on her face as she quickly rushed into the divine. You risked your life for me that day. The 18 profound I will accompany you to destroy the holy mountain. Quickly open. Come to think of it, bang, bang, bang. The 18 profound, Su Yi's emotionless face with a vast amount of stellar energy at the same time. He said in a low voice, and like a sky full of stars, my wife knows how to do business. They protected Su Yi's meridians. Let's put in some effort and remove the holy, allowing the metal-attributed energy. As soon as he finished speaking, back and forth in his wide, he swung his arms and placed the blood demon killing god sword in front of him. Blood exploded. His battle intent and his meridians surged. And his saint felt like a swollen balloon with his fire Yuan Chi burst out at any time. His power was monstrous as he spoke to Zhuhong monarch aura, Xiahong House. How much you can withstand will depend on your ability. There's no need to be reluctant. Death together. Let's leave the battle between us. Zhuhong Lu's voice was cold today, and it lingered in his ears along with the land together. Su Yi could hear that Zhuhong Lu's determined voice sneered as she looked around with a trace of sorrow. Indeed, Zhuhong Lu's Saint Monarch aura had just been upgraded to the complete form cold-blooded long ago. The people of the holy, and his familiarity, who wasn't a complete sacrifice of the holy mountain, had yet to reach perfection. A cold voice sounded from Xiahong. It was very likely that they would lose in an instant if they were careless. 2 streaks of golden this was a gamble. Flew even though Su Yi's physical strength was extremely strong, Xiahong House's spiritual energy was comparable to the pain and anger from before were completely replaced. It was still a gamble to use his physical body to resist the pure Xiahong House only had one since ancient times. Perhaps no one had ever been as holy venerate. Astral winds filled the gap. All the people who were massacred by after pondering for a while. Naturally, she also wanted to avenge her time to think chaos as he roared furiously. The chaos domain. So what if he risked flashed through her mind? I want the heavens to crack for me. Recalled the holy emperor who had gone to the chaos sacred mountain beneath my heaven-suppressing the proud laughter of and died mysteriously. The heaven-suppressing metal stone should have been a top secret. A tone so how could an outsider know so much? At the same time, Xiahong House was very sure that not only the holy sword tightly, but the holy golden light flashing could also be a shocking conspiracy that had been planned. His long black hair. No wonder the holy venerate protected me. It was as if a god had descended and didn't let me come in contact with anyone since I was as soon as he finished speaking. So as to not the heavenly origin demon to take advantage of me. In Su Yi's mind, Xiahong House's gaze landed on the profound and unfathomable energy flying over rapidly enveloped her mysterious ball of light surged like a surging and the fire in her heart burned even more fiercely. Su Yi's face instantly contorted. Disciples of the holy mountain, and he clenched his teeth up so today's matter they seemed like they were about to shatter. The holy venerate's a loud cry of pain, even the holy emperor's from his throat, related to the holy mountain's he nearly fell to the ground. Yu Chi Feng and the soon after elder the veins on his entire body and killed the holy large beads of sweat quickly covered Su Yi's body. If there's anyone who dares to resist, he shook his head vigorously and raised his eyes to look at the Dharmaraj's attack in the distance. Through his teeth, he spat out the art of driving the heavens and boundless spiritual energy immediately spread across the sky. Runes suffused with a mysterious luster circulated around him, and together with the 4 yuan qi radiances of earth, water, wind, and fire, Su Yi's entire body was immersed in the divine light. The light shone brightly, and his aura was incomparably ancient. The surrounding golden light was biting cold, and the energy wind tore the space into pieces. However, Su Yi gradually entered a state of calmness. Xiahong Lu's figure gradually blurred and merged with the golden light. At this moment, the auspicious clouds in the sky shattered, and several golden streaks once again shot past in front of him. Whoosh whoosh. When they passed by Su Yi's protective spiritual energy, it was as if they had encountered the thing they feared the most, and they all changed directions. Hold on. Xiahong Lu's faint voice sounded in Su Yi's ears. His figure blurred, and Xiahong Lu's yellow robe fluttered high in the wind. His snow-white face was suffused with a faint golden radiance, as if he was a god's son. Su Yi, Duanmu Xiaoman stood outside the battle circle, and her anxious gaze fell on Su Yi's face. When she saw Xiahong Lu and Su Yi's cooperation, a faint radiance surged in her clear eyes. Could it be that Xiahong Lu has a huge amount of energy? Duanmu Xiaoman's red lips parted slightly, and her expression gradually eased a little. Has Su Yi been scared silly? He's actually not moving at all in front of Guardian King. Has he given up resisting? In the end, he still can't hold on. Does he really think that there's no one in our holy mountain? Elders, kill this arrogant bastard. Some of the people of the holy mountain trembled in fear, while others sneered. They were all surging with curiosity towards Su Yi, who was suspended in midair. Rumble. At this moment, within the holy mountain, golden light surged as if gods and demons were dancing wildly. The old and wild Guardian King roared at the sky. The earth shook, and countless lofty mountains and precipitous ridges began to crack from middle. A huge energy storm swept through the entire world, and the holy mountain once again fell in a great chaos. This move? This brat and kid Shui? Duanmu Qingtian's entire body was also twisted. His tall and straight body leaned forward slightly, and his eyes flashed with anxiety. Sect leader, are you trying to borrow the power of the heaven-suppressing metal stone? It's too risky. This is too risky. Shangwan Tianchun stood in the crowd, his eyes gradually turning red, and his throat began to choke. Shangwan Tianchun knew that Xiahong Lu had an unresolvable hatred for the holy mountain, and Su Yi was even more irreconcilable with the holy mountain. The Tian Yao school and the Li family died because of him. In front of a great enemy, Su Yi did not choose to rely on the imperial palace, nor did he choose to rely on the aristocratic families. Instead, he wanted to rely on his own strength to collapse the holy mountain. He wanted to avenge the Tian Yao school and the people who died because of the holy mountain. He wanted to fulfill his promise and overturn the holy mountain alone. After the holy mountain, Tianchun will be at your disposal, and the heavenly demons will prosper. Unconsciously clenching his fists, Shangwan Tianchun nodded. When he shifted his gaze to the side, his eyes widened slightly. Boom! Above the void, Su Yi let out a low roar. The heavenly origin demon soul was like a ball of mercury that was about to explode, and its shape began to change instantly. In the mind of the psychic sense, it was rampaging, overbearing, and turbulent, just like a ferocious beast. Standing above the void, Su Yi's vision began to spin. In front of him, the illusory figure of the 8 Division Guardian Kings had a vigorous aura, and its ancient and powerful soul energy spread out in the void. It was about to devour Su Yi and Xiahong Lu, 2 arrogant brats. No matter how talented you are, the holy mountain will not be able to stay. Go to hell. Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun's voices overlapped, and the illusory figure echoed like an empty valley. Chapter 2036. Waves of sound waves shattered the spatial ripples, turning into an unparalleled attack that charged towards Su, Yi, and Xiahong House. Roar! The 8th Division Guardian King stood up instantly. His huge figure covered the sky as golden light surged all over his body. The terrifying energy turned into a destructive aura that froze the void. Die! The old voice floated out again. Bang! Bang! Boom! All of a sudden, the Guardian King's 8 arms stretched out at the same time. 8 types of sacred artifacts spun at the same time, and an extremely powerful aura filled the air. The air vortex created by the 8 arms crushed the space directly, and 8 huge golden rays shot out from the arms. The 8 rays of light shot through the air, shattering the space along the way. After the terrifying energy light pillar, the Guardian King lowered his head, and the divine light that shot out from his eyes was even more earth-shattering. Everywhere it passed, golden light filled the air, and the mountains were enveloped in a solemn and domineering aura. Hiss! In an instant, countless muffled sounds reverberated in the air. The mountains exploded, and the ancient trees collapsed. The sky and the ground seemed to have merged into one. In a vast space, cracks spread out rapidly like spider webs. Puffed! Xiahong House stood behind Su Yi, and blood spurted out of her mouth. Unlike Su Yi, it was already a miracle that Xiahong House, who was at the Origin Emperor realm, could hold on until now. 5th Saint, Li Ling rushed out of the crowd and stood at the highest point. The rapid astral winds quickly cut open a few wounds on her body. She endured the pain and moved while covering her mouth. Shaking her head, Li Ling turned to the experts of the sacred mountain and said, "Save the 5th Saint! Save the 5th Saint!" As she spoke, large drops of tears fell from her eyes. Her delicate body trembled. The experts of the sacred mountain looked at each other and lowered their heads. Didn't you all support the 5th Saint? You're not going to save him? Is this the sacred mountain? What trash! Li Ling's eyes were filled with panic. Her gaze swept across the faces of every sacred mountain expert, and she frowned. Disappointment, despair, and a cold smile hung at the corner of her mouth. All right, if you won't save him, I will. I'll go save the 5th Holy Sun. Taking a deep breath, Li Ling looked at the spatial ripples that flew out from the battlefield. They were like sharp golden blades. Li Ling gathered the yuan qi under her feet, but it was instantly pressed down by a black shadow. At the same time, Elder Guyue and Long Pasan came to Li Ling's side. Their expressions were grave, and their benevolent faces had become extremely serious. Guyue said in a low voice, "Girl, don't throw your life away. Let's go see Ruoxin first." Li Ling's chest heaved up and down. She turned around and saw Dugi Yuma healing Lu Ruoxi. At this moment, when he came out of the great metal elemental formation, his complexion had become much rosier. Li Ling immediately pursed her red lips and ran to Lu Ruoxi. She squatted down with a nervous expression and held Lu Ruoxi's hand. Squatting beside Lu Ruoxi, Li Ling could feel that the aura on Lu Ruoxi's body was rapidly changing. A majestic and profound aura erupted from her pores and pushed her back heavily. Looking at Dugi Yuma again, she saw that he was exhausting his yuan qi at a terrifying speed. Li Ling was stunned. At this moment, there was another earth-shattering explosion behind her. Boom! Everyone's eyes were fixed on the golden battlefield. The wind was howling within the battlefield, and the golden light was like a divine radiance that illuminated the earth. The 10 golden light rays were blocked by the golden light circle in front of Su Yi. Xiahong House's shadow had almost merged with the golden space. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see it. Boom! Su Yi's body was covered in a faint golden light circle. The light was surging, and it was visible to the naked eye. It was more solid than the golden light in front of him. At the same time, the golden light above his head and his feet stepped on the clouds. A sonic boom was heard. Su Yi and Xiahong House opened their eyes at the same time. The golden light around their bodies merged in an instant. Immediately, an even more terrifying golden light flew out and enveloped the two of them. Wong! Xiahong Lu's golden eyes were filled with a divine aura. Xiahong Lu's expression instantly calmed down as an unprecedented Saint Ruler Qi soared into the sky. Su Yi, who was in front of her, smirked. His gaze landed on the golden guardian king's shadow in the distance. Instantly, an intense and terrifying aura spread out from his body. At this moment, Duanmu Qingtian and Duanmu Xiaoman, who had just pinned Li Ling down, stood outside the battlefield. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. In the blink of an eye, Su Yi's aura underwent an earth-shattering change. The originally desolate and heavy ancient aura seemed to have completely merged with the surrounding Saint Ruler Qi. It was as if they were born and grew together. There was an extremely intimate level of compatibility. "What's going on?" Duanmu Xiaoman asked softly. Duanmu Qingtian, who was in a black robe, could not suppress the excitement in his eyes. "Su Yi, that brat, should have guessed it long ago. That sword is the Sage Emperor King sword. It's also the Heavenly Wind Divine sword. If I'm not wrong, that brat is the other half of the heaven-suppressing golden stone. The true Sage Ruler aura has appeared." Hearing that, Duanmu Xiaoman's expression changed drastically. She turned to look at Duanmu Qingtian, her body twitching subconsciously. Only Duanmu Qingtian could think of such a shocking idea. Duanmu Xiaoman immediately felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off her shoulders. Her lips curled into a smile. "He always brings me many surprises, just like you back then." Duanmu Qingtian rolled his eyes. There was clearly some jealousy in his black robe as he spoke softly. "I keep feeling that Su Yi, that brat, is taking advantage of me. He has a great background and has amazing talent. He can withstand the energy of the heaven-suppressing golden stone, but he won't be able to hold on for long. We have to rush in quickly." Looking at Su Yi, who was in the golden light, Duanmu Xiaoman's expression changed again. She said in a deep voice, "Yes, there's still an old man in Saint Mountain who hasn't come out yet." Rumble. Above the void, Su Yi gently twirled the blood demon killing god sword in his hand as if it was a leaf. "It's over. 2 old thieves. I'll let you know what the true Sage Ruler aura is." "What?" Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun looked as if they had seen a ghost. Their Sage Ruler aura that was close to half-step Yuan Tian surged into the sky again. The figure of the 8th Division Guardian King instantly came within a few feet of Su Yi and Xiahong House. His huge body faced Su Yi and Xiahong House, but there was a faint sense of fear. His huge body covered the sky, swallowing the clouds and spitting out the moon. Ferocious metal energy filled the sky, but he could no longer do as he wished like before. Within the illusory figure, Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun's sharp gazes fluctuated continuously. Sheng Feng shouted angrily, "Brat, what sorcery are you using? How dare you affect my Guardian King true body?" Above the illusory figure of the Guardian King, Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun suppressed their panic state of mind and used their powerful soul energy to control the Guardian King true body. The murderous Sage Ruler aura broke through the void once again. 8 huge attacks pierced through the layers of waves and blasted towards Su Yi's light circle. Chapter 2037. Part 1-inch rumble. A sonic boom resounded, shaking heaven and earth. The golden light between heaven and earth once again filled the air. Amidst the wind and thunder, it was as if a violent dragon was smashing heaven and earth. In an instant, the entire heaven and earth were enveloped in it. It was extremely terrifying. "Die!" Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun's long and narrow eyes flashed with a smile. The golden light pierced through the void, spreading out with endless killing intent. Bang! When the golden light reached its peak, everyone subconsciously closed their eyes. A chill spread all over their body, and all the hair on their body stood up because of this terrifying force. Sui. Suddenly, countless eyes opened and trembled. They saw an even larger Holy King's shadow, filling the entire void. Wrapped in the sacred aura, A huge figure that seemed to have crossed the ancient heaven and earth directly overturned the Guardian King's true body. Do you think you have the original Holy King's aura? Do you think the power obtained through dirty means can last forever? What a joke. He snorted coldly. Between heaven and earth, there was only a huge divine sound circulating. The drifting sound carried a dense chill. Yi and Xiahong House had already merged into the light and shadow. The huge figure wrapped Yi and Xiahong House in it. The golden light that was enough to swallow the entire mountain instantly illuminated the entire heaven and earth. A figure that looked like a small giant blocked the 8-division Guardian King. He raised his hand and struck out with a palm, sending out an extremely huge light wave. The Six Paths Holy King's true body. It's the Six Paths Holy King's true body. At this time, everyone's eyes began to tremble. Whether it was the powerhouses of the Holy Mountain or the people of the Heavenly Palace, the shadow that originally appeared in the sacred martial hall had appeared in front of them. It was extremely condensed and powerful. Everyone around took a deep breath. The Holy King's true body in front of them seemed to cleanse the world and judge all living things in the world. The tall and upright Holy King's image was solemn and sacred. A terrifying wind swept through the heaven and earth in an instant. The Holy King's true body quickly rushed to the Guardian King's side. Golden light flickered in his proud eyes. A dull voice quickly shot out. It was Yi's voice. Bang! People of the Holy Mountain, atone for your sins with your blood. The indifferent voice was like an ultimatum, instantly crushing the minds of everyone present. Many people with low cultivation had already turned pale and vomited blood. Boom! The Six Paths Holy King true body stepped on the 8-division Shakyamuni. With an earth-shattering sound, the 8-division Shakyamuni's huge body instantly trembled, and the sound of bones breaking filled the air. Yi, you will die a horrible death. Sheng Feng's cold voice resounded through the clouds. Within the golden light, Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun had already staggered and collapsed in the dazzling golden light. Their blood was pale, and their eyes were filled with fear and panic. The two Sacred Mountain experts had complicated looks in their eyes, their eyeballs almost popping out. Until now, they still couldn't understand how an Origin Ancestor and Origin Emperor could trigger the Six-Path Sage King True Bodies. The Six-Path Sage King True Body was the famous ultimate technique of the first Holy Emperor. Even Sheng Yu, who was half a step to Yuan Tian, couldn't use it casually. Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun then fell to the ground and shook their heads. After a terrifying muffled sound, another attack heavily smashed into their chests. Bang! The dull sound resounded. Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun's chests had already caved in. Instantly, the golden light was filled with blood. One is the reincarnation of the heaven-suppressing stone, and the other has the Holy King Emperor Sword, which controls the eye of the golden sky great array. Even if Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun are half a step to Yuan Tian together, it's useless. Duanmu Qingtian's eyes were burning as he looked up at the two huge figures in front of him. Kill them directly. I can't hold on any longer. Xiahong Lu said softly. Standing behind Yi, Xiahong Lu was covered in a misty golden light. She was panting heavily, and her dark eyes were a little haggard. After pondering for a while, Yi also felt that the Yuan Qi in the great void divine ocean was close to drying up. Even if he borrowed the metal element Yuan Qi, it was still very exhausting. He shook his head and tried to stay awake. Nodding his head, Yi raised the blood demon killing god sword in his hand again. Above the Holy King's shadow, a huge sword suddenly appeared. The huge sword was 100 feet long. Golden runes surged endlessly as if it was cutting through the void. As soon as it was taken out, everyone's breathing began to stop. Time seemed to have frozen in an instant. That is, the Holy King Emperor Sword. Duanmu Xiongtu's body suddenly trembled, and his eyes were full of splendor. When he saw the blood demon killing god sword in his hand trigger the Holy King's shadow to use the Holy King's Emperor Sword, Duanmu Xiongtu jumped up in excitement and screamed. What? How did that brat get the holy King Emperor sword? An old figure jumped out from the crowd. As if he had seen a ghost, he looked at the golden light in the sky. It was none other than Elder Bingka from the Sacred Martial Assembly. Ever since Su Yi killed Sheng Hua, Bingka had been hiding in the crowd, afraid that Su Yi would find him. At this moment, he was frightened by the holy King Emperor's sword. His lips trembled, and he said in a low voice, "The iron rule of the Holy Mountain is that whoever has the holy King Emperor's sword will be the new holy emperor. Could it be?" Impossible. It's definitely impossible. As soon as he said that, the faces of all the experts of the Holy Mountain turned ashen. Similarly, those from the Yuqian Palace and Shanjing Gate also looked serious. Guyue let out a long sigh, and his eyes shone brightly. He said hesitantly, "How did Su Yi get the Holy King Emperor sword of the Holy Mountain? Now it's not going to be easy." Bang! Far away, golden light flooded the sky, and the six paths Holy King true bodies almost occupied the entire sky. Stepping on the void, Su Yi held the blood demon killing God's sword with both hands, and a cold smile appeared on his face. It was as if a sharp blade was stabbing into the heart. At the same time, clouds gathered above his head, and the sky was filled with murderous aura. An absolute killing intent shrouded Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun. Suppressed, Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun's faces were as pale as paper, and when they tried to break free, they were suppressed by the innate Saint King's aura again. Blood splattered everywhere, and the murderous aura swept across the land. Zheng Zheng. In a split second, the sword swung down from the sky, and along with it, an extremely violent and destructive lightning bolt struck down. Above the lightning bolt, 9 dragons flew together. Golden dragon runes whistled out, wanting to destroy the entire holy mountain as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing wood. "Brat, how dare you? How dare you?" Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun's eyes shrunk, and the lightning in their eyes was so violent that the entire heaven and earth began to tremble. Bang! Under everyone's eyes, the lightning bolt struck down like a cannonball, and everyone could see a huge shockwave piercing through the 8 paths Holy King's protective chi. Come! A loud noise resounded through the clouds, and Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun's chi dissipated, and they were blasted into the mountain. Chapter 2038. In the next moment, the ferocious shockwave changed direction once again and charged towards a deep mountain of the sacred mountain, where immortal chi was steaming. Oh no! Duanmu Qingtian and Duanmu Xiaoman saw Su Yi and Shui Honglu falling like birds with broken wings. They immediately turned into streams of light and caught them, with Duanmu Xiaoman supporting him. Su Yi's meridians were on the verge of shattering. His great void divine ocean was extremely dry, as if his entire body had been hollowed out. On the other hand, Duanmu Qingtian was supporting Zhuhonglu. Zhuhonglu's condition was not much better than Su Yi's. Crack! In the deepest part of the sacred mountain, a mountaintop was split open from the middle. A thunderous sound was accompanied by a soaring golden light, dazzling everyone and making them want to prostrate themselves. Boom! The golden light was rampant, and a torrential metallic energy emerged as a sharp storm. Energy swept out from all directions. I never thought that I would be able to see the holy ruler's emperor's sword in my lifetime. The old voice instantly covered all the noise. At this moment, the sacred mountain suddenly quieted down. Countless people's eyes fell on the golden light. The golden light surged, and an old figure slowly floated out from the middle of the split body. The 2 bright eyes that shot out were like lamps that could see through people's hearts. In an instant, they carried a huge amount of soul energy, shocking everyone. The figure that came out was not tall and straight. He was dressed in simple and plain clothes, but it revealed that he was not an ordinary old man. Although his eyes were small, they were bright. His snow-white hair danced in the wind. His face was full of wrinkles and looked lifeless. He looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. His hands that were hidden in his sleeves were broad and thick. His huge knuckles were densely covered with calluses. It was as if he could shatter the void with a casual grab. Holy Eve's Elder! Duanmu Xiongtu's eyes were filled with excitement. Tears flowed as he knelt on the ground and shouted. What? The Patriarch of the Sacred Mountain, the Holy Eve's Patriarch, the supreme expert from 800 years ago. The eyes of the Holy Mountain's disciples and experts glowed with excitement. Immediately, thunderous noises of people kneeling and kowtowing resounded throughout the mountain range. Greetings, Holy Eve's Patriarch. Holy Eve's Patriarch, save the Sacred Mountain. Holy Eve's Patriarch, those bastards are trying to destroy our holy mountain. He did his best to stand in place, his eyebrows filled with awe. Duanmu Xiaoman beside him said, That old fellow has finally come out. Brat, this old fellow is not easy to deal with. Duanmu Qingtian coldly said, This guy doesn't seem to have much time left. As the iron soulfish lay in the entryway, Su Yi activated the Origin Supreme technique. With the blood demon slaying Godsword in his hand, Su Yi's spiritual sense was exceptionally sensitive. No wonder he's been hiding. Su Yi's lips curled up. Subsequently, Su Yi shook his head, took a deep breath, and said to the two people beside him, looking somewhat haggard, If he wanted to kill me, he would have come out a long time ago. He wouldn't have waited until the last moment. Then, the energy under Su Yi's feet surged, raising his spirits. Clenching the blood demon, slaying Godsword in his hand, he slowly walked towards the Holy Eve's Patriarch. Little brat, the Sacred Mountain's 10,000 years of foundation has been destroyed by you today. You should be satisfied. The Holy Eve's Patriarch's body was as calm as an ancient well. There was not the slightest trace of killing intent, but a trace of dissatisfaction flitted across his eyes. A life for a life. A debt must be repaid. It's only right and proper. I'm helping you clean up your house, and you're blaming me? Ha ha ha. A dry laugh came out from the Holy Eve's Patriarch's throat. With his hands behind his back, the Holy Eve's Patriarch looked at the sword in Su Yi's hand. Interesting. Can you let me take a look at this sword? Su Yi's gaze also moved down to the blood demon, slaying Godsword. The blood-red light fluttered, and faint golden patterns circled around it, looking quite mysterious. The corner of his mouth suddenly twitched. I know what you're thinking, but it's already mine. You can't take it away from me. You actually said that the object of the Sacred Mountain is yours. The Holy Eve's Patriarch's eyes instantly turned cold as he stared at Su Yi. Whoosh! The sword trembled. Su Yi raised his eyebrows, but he was not afraid in his heart. He said seriously, Where did the Sacred Mountain get this sword from? After a long silence, the Holy Eve's Patriarch's expression was calm. Suddenly, there was a hint of emotion in his cold eyes. The Sacred Mountain had obtained the Heavenly Wind Divine Sword from the Tianyao school and obtained half of the chi of the Holy Monarch. From then on, it was renamed the Holy Monarch Emperor Sword to deceive the public. How could the Holy Eve's Patriarch not know this? Primitive accumulation always had a bloody past. The Holy Eve Patriarch saw through this and devoted himself wholeheartedly to the study of martial arts, ignoring worldly affairs. Then are you willing to be the new sacred emperor of the Sacred Mountain? The Holy Eve's elder coughed, his eyes filled with hope. His old face twitched slightly, and a bright smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The Sacred Mountain's sacred emperor was the overlord of the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea. The Holy Eve's Patriarch actually wanted a 19-year-old boy to be the new sacred emperor. As soon as the Holy Eve's Patriarch finished speaking, everyone present was shocked. Their eyes widened as they looked at the Holy Eve's Patriarch and Su Yi in horror. What? Holy Eve's Patriarch? Are you sure? He killed so many of our Sacred Mountain's people. Impossible. We Sacred Mountain's disciples will never agree. He killed the Great Holy Sun, Holy Flame Patriarch, and Holy Extermination Patriarch. He also seriously injured Holy Peak Patriarch and Holy Cloud Patriarch. How could such a person be left alive? Holy Eve's Patriarch, you have to think twice. The Holy Eve's Patriarch raised his head slightly. His eyes were a bit haggard as he spoke to Duanmu Xiongtu. Where are the sacred Martial Hall elders? Tell the Sacred Mountains disciples. Tell me, what is the first standard of Sacred Mountains, Sacred Emperor? Duanmu Xiongtu's body suddenly trembled. He slightly bent his body, and with a serious expression, he shouted, "The first standard of Sacred Emperor is whoever has the Sacred Monarch Emperor Sword will be the new Sacred Emperor. Even if you don't have the Sacred Monarch Emperor Sword, the person who ascends to the position of Sacred Emperor must spend the rest of his life to find the Sacred Monarch Emperor Sword. Even so, I will not take this thief as my master. Absolutely impossible. Sacred Mountain will not take an enemy as its master." Bing Cauldron shouted. His snow-white beard trembled slightly as smoke began to rise from his 7 orifices. Following Bing Cauldron's shout, everyone instantly roared in protest. Bing Cauldron's familiar voice made Su-Yi turn around. When their eyes met, Bing Cauldron was immediately embarrassed. His heart thumped as if he was frozen in place. Su-Yi shrugged helplessly as his eyes lit up. The corner of his mouth twitched as he said, "I will not be the Sacred Emperor of Sacred Mountain." Following that, Su-Yi raised his eyebrows as the Yuan Qi in his Great Void Divine Sea began to slowly recover along with the Origin Supreme technique. He said in a deep voice, "Sacred Mountain has no right to keep me, and you have no right to say such words. We asked you to be the Sacred Emperor Sword, and you refused. Damn it, how can we keep such a person? What? That's too arrogant. How dare you talk nonsense in front of a half-step Yuan Tian expert?" The Sacred Mountain's disciples' eyes trembled as they muttered softly. After listening to them, the Holy Eve's Patriarch smiled again. His dry and wrinkled skin seemed to hide the endless years that had passed. Chapter 2039. Working hard to update. Please refresh later. This chapter is working hard to update. Please refresh later. Handsome man and beautiful woman. Can you register as a member first? If you register as a member, you can use the bookmark function on the bookshelf. If this chapter is about the author asking for votes, please skip it and continue to the next chapter. Please save this page first so you can read it later. Otherwise, you won't be able to find this chapter later. Recommended author: Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty. Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty Summary. He was just a small servant, but he was involved in an ancient secret. A bizarre murder case had sent an affectionate young miss and a cold and arrogant little maid to him. Were they really innocent people who were involved in this? Westlake Broken Bridge, strange and treacherous. Fate linked by a thread. The truth was just inches away. Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty forwarding address /33xs/317/31755 3/33xs/31755/3/content trial reading chapter 001. Returning home in glory, the Southern Song Dynasty, Qi Kingdom, Qiantang, Shieling Bridge. The moon hung high in the sky, and the night fog curled up on the road. An oil wall carriage approached from afar, moving lightly on a small road in the countryside of Jiangnan. A pair of lanterns hung in front of the carriage. As the carriage bumped along with the rolling wheels, the delicate and beautiful Su character on the lantern swayed. The carriage was draped with a light veil, and a driver sat in front of the carriage holding the reins. The moonlight was like water, illuminating the ground. More importantly, he was already familiar with this road. Even with his eyes closed, he could walk on it like it was flat ground. So, the night did not affect the speed of the carriage at all. The veil moved with the wind, occasionally revealing 3 beautiful figures in the carriage. In the middle was a girl in a red dress. Her hair was cloudy and her steps were light. Looking from behind, one could see her slender neck like an elegant swan. The girl on the left was white, and the girl on the right was green. Based on her clothes and hairstyle, she was still dressed as a young girl. Obviously, She was the servant of the beauty in the middle. But seeing the three of them sitting together, traveling under the moonlight, and their crisp laughter, it was obvious that they were as close as sisters. The girl in the middle was Qiantong's #1 courtesan, Su Yaoyao. The girls in green and white on her left and right were her sisters, by Su and Qingting. The three girls were traveling at night to meet with Master Yuan. Remember. Suddenly, the frosty night sky changed from a cold pale white to a golden light, as if a sun that had been sealed for 10,000 years had suddenly broken free from its shackles and leaped into the sky. The coachman, old Huang, who was driving the carriage, suddenly couldn't see anything. In a panic, he hurriedly pulled on the reins. The two horses were abruptly reined in by him and reared up. Their four big hooves heavily smashed onto the ground with a paw sound, abruptly stopping the carriage. Ouch! The three girls in the carriage were caught off guard and almost fell out of the carriage because of the sudden stop. Fortunately, the three of them were squeezed together. Although the three girls' bodies were light, how wide could an oil wall carriage be? Therefore, they didn't roll out of the carriage. If they fell and messed up their hair, it would be fine, but if they fell and hit the ground with their faces, it would ruin their beautiful faces. Old Huang, what's going on? Su Yaoyao was a little angry. She covered her face with her hand and blocked the strong light. She immediately lifted the veil, bent over, and stood on the carriage. Bai Su and Qingting followed. The three of them stood at the front of the carriage and looked up at the sky. When they saw the strange scene in the sky, they were stunned. He saw a huge golden wheel-like object that looked like a heavenly king was hovering in the air. The light that was as bright as the sun was radiating from it. It swayed in the air as though it couldn't support itself. All of a sudden, the golden wheel-like object exploded. The huge shock wave was like ripples that quickly spread in all directions. The driver, old Huang, cried out in surprise. He rolled out of the carriage like a lazy donkey and dove onto the carriage. Translator, Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios, on the other hand, Su Yaoyao, Bai Su, and Qingting couldn't avoid it in time. The golden light passed through their bodies. The three beautiful girls swayed and fell to the ground. The golden light disappeared, and so did the golden wheel in the sky. A few places were set on fire, and smoke rose. The night returned to its cold state, and quietly shone on the three beautiful bodies. The night dew was sparkling and translucent. The grass was like a carpet, the pine trees were like a canopy, and the path was silent. The oily wagon stood there, and the two horses snorted blankly, as if nothing had happened. Time flew by. 500 years later, the moon was high in the sky, and the lanterns were lit. It was a lively time for Qinhuai. Beside the peach leaf fairy, a young man waved a small fan and walked over slowly. Many passers-by on the road would greet him warmly, Brother Han. The young man would return their greetings with a smile and was very polite. Brother Han was dressed in a round-neck robe with a leather belt around his waist. He wore a legless headdress and a beautiful rose by his temples. It complemented his handsome face and made him look a little devilish. However, there was nothing he could do. This was the custom of the Song dynasty. From the emperor to the commoners, as long as they were men, they liked to wear flowers. The young man in front of him was tall and handsome. Even when he wasn't smiling, there was a hint of a smile on his face. It was slightly upturned and very likable. His pair of black and shiny eyebrows made his eyes look especially spirited and lively. It was as if he could speak as he looked around. He was different from those men who were covered in grease and insisted on wearing flowers. When young ladies and young wives saw him, they couldn't help but take a few more glances. This person's name was Yang Han. 3 days ago, he was a member of the Nanjing Street Department of the Song dynasty. The street department was in charge of the city streets. Its functions and status were similar to the urban management of the later generations. However, the urban management of the Song dynasty had many functions. It was almost a combination of policing, environmental protection, taxation, fire control, price inspection, industrial and commercial law enforcement, greening and cleaning, and dealing with illegal road occupation. Those who could do this job were either a scoundrel like Neo Air who could control people, or a slick person who knew how to steer according to the wind. However, when he really had to fight with people, he had to be a good fighter. Not only could he bend and stretch, but he also had to be soft and hard. First in line, Yang Han belonged to the latter. He was eloquent, alert, and had good martial arts. Although he was a commoner at the bottom of society, the 300 years of the Song dynasty were the best and wealthiest dynasty among all the dynasties. If you didn't have the ambition to become a marquis or conquer the world, you just wanted to be a commoner. Or, if you only had the ability to be a commoner, then you were born in the Song dynasty. You had cultivated merit for several generations. In other dynasties, the lives of commoners were far inferior. Therefore, Yang Han, a little urban management of the Song dynasty's Jiankong city, lived a very interesting life. Unfortunately, 3 days ago, he lost this fat job. It wasn't that Yang Han was impartial in his enforcement of the law and offended a big shot. It wasn't that he met a scoundrel with a strong background and couldn't continue working. It was because the head of the street department, Master Li, liked him and wanted to marry his daughter to him. The head of the department was equivalent to the captain of the urban management team. He was a member of the Yamen, and people like Yang Han were all recruited by the head of the department. Therefore, to be precise, Yang Han was the head of the department. To be able to become the son-in-law of the head of the department, there should be smoke rising from his ancestors' graves. However, Yang Han was also a smooth and slick character. He was very familiar with the city's fox and rat society in Jiankong City. His eyes and ears were very well informed. He knew the head of the department's precious daughter better than the head of the department himself. How could he agree? First, domain name. Please remember _3. Master Li's daughter was called Li Xiao. She was born beautiful, but she wasn't very restrained in the imperial examination. According to the news that Yang Han heard, this Miss Li had several lovers. She even had an abortion for one of her recent lovers, a scholar named Mu Si. Until now, the two of them were still hooking up with each other, and their relationship was unclear. As the saying goes, it's better to marry a prostitute and live a good life than marry a red apricot over the wall. Yang Han was also an ambitious man. He didn't want to be a scapegoat for that surnamed Mu and be criticized behind his back. Therefore, Yang Han used all his means and didn't hesitate to sully himself. He was unwilling to give in no matter what. However, he didn't know what was wrong with this Master Li's brain. He didn't understand the principle that a forcefully twisted melon won't be sweet. He actually threatened to resign from his job. Yang Han naturally refused to give in. Therefore, he lost his job. These 2 days, when people on the street mentioned the missing Yang Han, many people couldn't help but sigh. They felt sorry for him, but they didn't expect that he would show up this evening. There was a restaurant next to Tao Yidu. Yang Han walked in, picked a table, and sat down. He raised his voice and said, "Shopkeeper, a bowl of duck blood and vermicelli soup, a tray of crab roe buns, and a jiao of wine." When Miss Du, who was wearing an apron, saw it was Yang Han, she was happy. Girls love pretty boys. Who didn't love to see a handsome young man? She and her father took care of this shop. Every time Yang Han came, the duck blood and vermicelli soup was full of ingredients. They were even willing to put a spoonful of pepper for him. She immediately agreed in a crisp voice and got busy. Yang Han turned his head and saw Old Fan passing by with a load. He hurriedly shouted, "Hey, Old Fan, come in, come in. Cut me half a tail of mutton and a set of pig pancreas." Old Fan was a person who carried a load and sold cooked food. Yang Han was familiar with him. When he heard him call, he hurriedly mustered up his courage and entered the shop. He put down the carrying pole and the chopping board on Yang Han's table. He picked up a piece of mutton and began to cut it. As he cut, he smiled and said, "Brother Han, you're looking for a better job. Where are you getting rich now?" Yang Han was waiting for him to say this. He arrogantly glanced around. Seeing that everyone was listening attentively, he smiled reservedly. "Not really, not really. It's just that I'm indebted to the magistrate of Jiankong Prefecture, Master Li, for his appreciation. Now, I'm a small steward in the Li estate." Old Fan was shocked. He exclaimed, "Io, that's amazing. a seventh-rank official in front of the Prime Minister's door. Brother Han, now that you're a steward in the Magistrate's Lee estate, I'm afraid your status won't be lower than head Lees, right? Yang Han smiled faintly. It wasn't good for him to flatter himself, but he didn't deny it either. It was clear that he tacitly agreed with Old Fan's words. Originally, why else would he be dressed like a flower with a hairpin and a sachet tied to his waist? Why else would he appear in the area he was previously in charge of? Returning home in silken robes. Southern Song Chronicles 2/33XS/317/317553. Chapter 2040. Working hard to update. Please refresh later. This chapter is working hard to update. Please refresh later. Handsome man and beautiful woman. Can you register as a member first? If you register as a member, you can use the bookmark function on the bookshelf. If this chapter is about the author asking for votes, please skip it and continue to the next chapter. Please save this page first so you can read it later. Otherwise, you won't be able to find this chapter later. Recommended author. Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty. Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty Summary. He was just a small servant, but he was involved in an ancient secret. A bizarre murder case had sent an affectionate young miss and a cold and arrogant little maidam. Were they really innocent people who were involved in this? Westlake Broken Bridge, strange and treacherous. Fate linked by a thread. The truth was just inches away. Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty forwarding address /33XS/317/33XS/317/3175553/content trial reading chapter 001. Returning home in glory, the Southern Song Dynasty, Qi Kingdom, Qiantang, Shieling Bridge. The moon hung high in the sky, and the night fog curled up on the road. An oil wall carriage approached from afar, moving lightly on a small road in the countryside of Jiangnan. A pair of lanterns hung in front of the carriage. As the carriage bumped along with the rolling wheels, the delicate and beautiful Sioux character on the lantern swayed. The carriage was draped with a light veil, and a driver sat in front of the carriage holding the reins. The moonlight was like water, illuminating the ground. More importantly, he was already familiar with this road. Even with his eyes closed, he could walk on it like it was flat ground. So, the night did not affect the speed of the carriage at all. The veil moved with the wind, occasionally revealing three beautiful figures in the carriage. In the middle was a girl in a red dress. Her hair was cloudy and her steps were light. Looking from behind, one could see her slender neck like an elegant swan. The girl on the left was white, and the girl on the right was green. Based on her clothes and hairstyle, she was still dressed as a young girl. Obviously, she was the servant of the beauty in the middle. But seeing the three of them sitting together, traveling under the moonlight and their crisp laughter, it was obvious that they were as close as sisters. The girl in the middle was Qiantang's #1 courtesan, Su Yaoyao. The girls in green and white on her left and right were her sisters by Su and Qingting. The three girls were traveling at night to meet with Master Wan. Remember. Suddenly, the frosty night sky changed from a cold pale white to a golden light, as if a sun that had been sealed for 10,000 years had suddenly broken free from its shackles and leaped into the sky. The coachman, Old Huang, who was driving the carriage, suddenly couldn't see anything. In a panic, he hurriedly pulled on the reins. The two horses were abruptly reined in by him and reared up. Their four big hooves heavily smashed onto the ground with a paw sound, abruptly stopping the carriage. Ouch! The three girls in the carriage were caught off guard and almost fell out of the carriage because of the sudden stop. Fortunately, the three of them were squeezed together. Although the three girls' bodies were light, how wide could an oil wall carriage be? Therefore, they didn't roll out of the carriage. If they fell and messed up their hair, it would be fine, but if they fell and hit the ground with their faces, it would ruin their beautiful faces. Translator, Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios, Old Huang, what's going on? Su Yaoyao was a little angry. She covered her face with her hand and blocked the strong light. She lifted the veil, bent over, and stood on the carriage. Bai Su and Qingting followed. The three of them stood at the front of the carriage and looked up at the sky. As soon as they saw the strange scene in the sky, they were stunned. He saw a huge golden wheel-like object that looked like a heavenly king was hovering in the air. The light that was as bright as the sun was emitted from it. It swayed in the air as though it couldn't support itself. All of a sudden, the golden wheel-like object exploded. The huge shock wave was like ripples that quickly spread in all directions. The driver, Old Huang, cried out in surprise. He rolled off the carriage like a lazy donkey and dove into the bottom of the carriage. On the other hand, Su Yaoyao, Bai Su, and Qingting couldn't dodge in time, so the golden light passed through their bodies. The three beautiful girls swayed a little and fell to the ground. The golden light disappeared, and so did the golden wheel in the sky. A few fires lit up near and far, and smoke rose. The night returned to its cold state, and quietly shone on the three beautiful bodies. The night dew was sparkling and translucent. The orchid dew was like crying eyes. The grass was like a carpet, the pine trees were like a cover, and the path was silent. The oily wagon stood there, and the two horses snorted blankly, as if nothing had happened. Time flew by. 500 years later, the moon was high in the sky, and the lanterns were lit. It was time for Qinhuai to be lively. Beside the peach leaf fairy, a young man waved a small fan and slowly walked over. Many passers-by on the road would greet him warmly, Brother Han. The young man would return their greetings with a smile and was very polite. Brother Han was dressed in a round-necked robe with a leather belt around his waist. He wore a pair of legless headdress, and there was a beautiful rose in his hair. It complemented his handsome face and made him look a little seductive. However, there was nothing he could do. This was the custom of the Song dynasty. From the emperor to the commoners, as long as they were men, they liked to wear flowers. The young man in front of him was tall and handsome. Even when he wasn't smiling, there was a slight smile on his face. It was slightly upturned and very likable. His pair of black and shiny eyebrows made his eyes look especially spirited and lively. It was as if he could speak as he looked around. He was different from those men who were covered in grease and insisted on wearing flowers. When young ladies and young wives saw him, they couldn't help but take a few more glances. This person's name was Yang Han. 3 days ago, he was a member of the Nanjing Street Department of the Song dynasty. The street department was in charge of the city streets. Its functions and status were similar to the urban management of the later generations. However, the urban management of the Song dynasty had many functions. It was almost a combination of policing, environmental protection, taxation, fire control, price inspection, industrial and commercial law enforcement, greening and cleaning, and handling illegal road occupation. Those who could do this were either a scoundrel like Neo Air who could control people, or a slick person who knew how to steer according to the wind. However, when he really had to fight with people, had to be a good fighter. Not only could he bend and stretch, but he also had to be soft and hard. Yang Han belonged to the latter. He was eloquent, alert, and had good martial arts. Although he was a commoner at the bottom of society, the 300 years of the Song dynasty were the best and wealthiest dynasty among all the dynasties. If you didn't have the ambition to become a marquis or conquer the world, you just wanted to be a commoner. Or if you only had the ability to be a commoner, then you were born in the Song dynasty and had cultivated merit for several generations. In other dynasties, the lives of commoners were far inferior. Therefore, Yang Han, a little urban management of the Song dynasty's Jiankong city, lived a very interesting life. Unfortunately, 3 days ago, he lost this fat job. It wasn't that Yang Han was impartial in his enforcement of the law and offended a big shot. It wasn't that he met a scoundrel with a strong background and couldn't continue working. It was because the head of the street department, Master Li, had taken a fancy to him and wanted to marry his daughter to him. The head of the department was equivalent to the captain of the town security team. He was a member of the Yamen, and people like Yang Han were all recruited by the head of the department. Therefore, to be precise, Yang Han was the head of the department. To be able to become the Master Li's son-in-law, there should be smoke rising from his ancestors' graves. However, Yang Han was also a smooth and slick character. He was very familiar with the city's fox and rat society in Jiankong City, and his eyes and ears were very well informed. He knew the Master Li's precious daughter better than the Master Li himself. So how could he agree? Master Li's daughter was called Li Xiao. She was born beautiful, but she wasn't very restrained in the imperial examination. According to the news that Yang Han heard, this Miss Li had several lovers. She even had an abortion for one of her recent lovers, a scholar named Mu Si. Until now, the two of them were still hooking up with each other, and their relationship was unclear. As the saying goes, one would rather marry a prostitute and live a good life than marry a red apricot over the wall. Yang Han was also an ambitious man. He didn't want to be a scapegoat for that surnamed Mu and be criticized behind his back. Therefore, Yang Han used all his means and didn't hesitate to sully himself. He was unwilling to give and no matter what. But this Master Li didn't know what was wrong with his brain. He didn't understand the principle that a forcefully twisted melon wouldn't be sweet. He actually threatened to resign from his job. Yang Han naturally refused to give in, so he lost his job. These 2 days, when the people on the street mentioned the missing Yang Han, many people couldn't help but sigh, feeling sorry for him. They didn't expect that he would actually show up this evening. There was a restaurant next to Tao. Yidu Yang Han walked in, picked a table, and sat down. He raised his voice and said, "Shopkeeper, a bowl of duck blood and vermicelli soup, a tray of crab roe buns, and a jiao of wine." When Miss Du, who was wearing an apron, saw it was Yang Han, she was happy. Girls love pretty boys. Who didn't love to see a handsome young man? She and her father took care of this restaurant. Every time Yang Han came, the duck blood and vermicelli soup would be full of ingredients. They were even willing to put a spoonful of pepper for him. She immediately agreed in a crisp voice and got busy. Yang Han turned his head and saw old Fan, who was carrying a load, passing by. He hurriedly shouted, "Hey, old Fan, come in, come in. Cut me half a tail of mutton and a set of pig pancreas." This old Fan was a person who carried a load and sold cooked food. Yang Han was familiar with him. When he heard him call, he hurriedly mustered up his courage and entered the restaurant. He put down a carrying pole and the chopping board on Yang Han's table. He picked up a piece of mutton and began to cut it. As he cut, he smiled and said, "Brother Han, you're looking for a better job. Where are you getting rich now?" Yang Han had been waiting for him to say this. He glanced around arrogantly, and when he saw that everyone had pricked up their ears, he smiled reservedly. "Not really, not really. It's just that I'm indebted to the magistrate of Peace Manor, Lord Li, for his appreciation. Now, I'm just a small steward in the Li estate." Old Fan was shocked. He exclaimed, "Io, that's amazing. A 7th-ranked official in front of the Prime Minister's door. Brother Han, now that you're a steward in Master Li's estate, I'm afraid your status isn't lower than Master Li's, right?" Yang Han smiled faintly. It wasn't good for him to flatter himself, but he didn't deny it either. It was clear that he tacitly agreed with old Fan's words. Originally, why else would he be dressed like a flower with a hairpin and a sachet tied to his waist? Why else would he appear in the area he was previously in charge of? He was returning home in silken robes. Southern Song Chronicles forwarding address /33XS/33XS/33XS/337553/317553/ Chapter 2041. Duanmu Xiao Man's feet moved swiftly, like fairy Qing Hong. She floated over. 2 ice crystals shot out from her hands, smashing onto the blood shield forged from the ice cauldron. Bang! Instantly, blood splattered everywhere, and a large amount of blood rained down from the sky. A murderous aura filled the air. The blood seemed to have a mind of its own. After leaving the body, it instantly turned into countless tiny mosquitoes and blasted towards Su Yi, Xiahong House, and the rest. In an instant, the bloody aura filled the sky. Within the wanton golden light, blood droplets filled the air like mosquitoes. Countless disciples across the mountains were crying nonstop. Don't touch the blood. The smell of blood can affect one's mind. Duanmu Xiongtu reacted quickly. The golden light in his palm slashed down and scattered the blood. The blood of a peak origin emperor was no small matter. Immediately, everyone present unleashed their weapons and started fighting with the blood-colored mosquitoes. Boom! The blood-colored mosquitoes were densely packed. Among them, a large group of mosquitoes bared their sharp teeth and blasted toward the spot in the crowd. In an instant, the sky was filled with ferocious lights. The flying mosquitoes, which were emitting blood-colored light, formed a group and rushed towards Lu Ruoxi, who had just woken up. Ruoxi, Su Yi shouted. Li Ling, Xiahong House's eyes were also bulging. Su Yi and Xiahong House quickly discovered the target of the mosquitoes amidst the chaos. Their faces were filled with shock. Looking at the stupefied Lu Ruoxi, Su Yi's heart skipped a beat. He and Xiahong House transformed into a stream of light and flew towards her. Their speed had never been this fast before. When the Crimson Worm was only 3 meters away from Lu Ruoxi and Li, Su Yi's Origin Supreme technique surged out of his body. The Xiahong House's Saint Ruler Qi also rose to the maximum, protecting the two of them. Creak! Creak! The blood-colored mosquitoes turned into venom and blasted onto Su Yi's Demon God Battle Armor. The Origin Supreme technique surged out, and the blood quickly turned into steam and dissipated. Sui, Lu Ruoxi, who had just woken up, had a pale mouth. There wasn't a trace of blood on her fair face. After such torment, her eyes became blurry and she fainted again. Ruoxin, Su Yi frowned and turned to look at Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun, his eyes filled with boundless killing intent. Fifth Holy Sun. Li Ling was in the Fifth Holy Sun's arms, and a masculine scent that was unique to men wafted over. At that moment, Li Ling's breathing quickened. She buried her face in Zhu Honglu's chest, allowing Zhu Honglu to disperse the blood bugs in front of her. Qila. At that moment, a spatial vortex had formed in front of Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun. Wind and lightning were blowing as they rushed into the spatial vortex. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, Xing Yu's entire body had already turned into a bolt of lightning and shot out explosively. He grabbed at the air, his speed exploding once again. Where do you think you're going? Bang! Within the whirlpool, Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun's bodies had already sunk in. Sheng Yu's eyes were wide open as he slashed with his claws. Clang! A golden clang resounded throughout the heavens and earth, and a crisscrossing golden waterfall whistled through the air like a dragon, aiming straight for the Saint Mountain. Bang! Sheng Feng was caught off guard. Suddenly, a tragic groan resounded through the golden vortex, and the left half of a human leg fell out of the spatial vortex. Xing Yu, I'm coming back to kill you. Sheng Feng's other leg was grabbed tightly by Sheng Yun. Sheng Yun's entire body was hanging halfway through the spatial vortex as he shouted, Brother! Brother! Save me! Sheng Yun's body slowed down a little. As he spoke, he was kicked out by a strong force, like a kite with a broken string, flying backwards. Immediately after, the white storm came whistling. Sheng Yun's mouth was still open when he was frozen into an ice sculpture, and he fell heavily from the sky. Bang! The ice sculpture fell on the mountain, drawing a beautiful white arc in the air. Immediately, the mountain exploded, and a huge crater was formed, forming spiderweb-like cracks. Su Yi's vital energy surged as he looked at the deep crater. Sheng Yun, who was already severely injured, was lying in the middle of the crater, dead as a doornail. At the critical moment, you can even kill your closest kin. The Long family's people are really ruthless. Su Yi raised his eyebrows and said coldly, thinking about how Sheng Feng kicked his own brother out of the spatial vortex. It was simply inhumane. Immediately, a chill rose in his heart. One escaped. What a pity. I'll go kill him. Duanmu Xiao Man snorted softly, feeling the same regret. Just as she was about to rush forward, she was stopped by Duanmu Qing Tian. It's useless. He's already far away. If you and Sheng Yu join forces, even if Sheng Feng doesn't die, he'll be half dead. Duanmu Qingtian muttered to himself, retracted his aura, and stopped talking. Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun's strength was not weaker than a half-step Yuan Tian expert. In addition, they had sacrificed Elder Bing Lu, so they had already planned to escape. It was already rare to be able to leave Sheng Yun's body behind. Su Yi came from afar and said coldly, "It's fine. Let him go back and report to his master. Tell him that I'm back. I won't let him have a good life." Duanmu Xiaoman also noticed that Su Yi went to save Lu Ruashi and asked seriously, "Ruashi woke up?" Su Yi nodded, gazing at Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful face that was as cold as an ice mountain, sacred and inviolable, quiet and piercingly cold. Instantly, a coldness greater than the Long family rose in his heart. And I don't know why she fainted in the formation. She used too much strength and fainted again. Su Yi said embarrassedly. Duanmu Xiaoman's mouth moved slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she turned around and left the sentence. "Bring her back to Yuqian Palace to take a look. Yuqian Palace has ways. You go back as well." Su Yi suddenly raised his head. Duanmu Xiaoman had already flown away, leaving only Duanmu Qingtian to come over and say, "Brat, you're good. My sister isn't angry." Su Yi smiled faintly and scratched his head. Then, he looked at Duanmu Xiaoman and felt a little embarrassed. Duanmu Xiaoman came for Su Yi, so naturally, she wouldn't have any interaction with the Holy Mountain when she left. Under the lead of Duanmu Xiaoman, Guiyue and the other experts of Yutian Palace greeted Su Yi and entered one by one. "I'm leaving too. Hurry up and bring the little girl back." After saying that, Duanmu Qingtian turned into a stream of light and entered the space crack. The interior of the Holy Mountain was already a mess. The Holy Eve's elder had already checked that Sheng Yun was completely dead. He returned to the air and said, "Today is a great day for the Holy Mountain. Holy Snow Emperor, it's best for the Holy Mountain to go into seclusion for 3 years to recuperate." At this time, Li Ling also fell from Xue Honglu's arms, her face flushed red. Xue Honglu said seriously, "Holy Eve's elder is right. After leaving the Holy Mountain, you are not to do anything unjust. The Holy Mountain will take this as a warning." Yes, the disciples of the Holy Mountain, who had come back to their senses, shouted in unison. Su Yi walked to Xue Honglu's side, nodded and looked at Duanmu Xiongtu. "Elder Xiongtu, Su Yi will remember today's kindness. I will repay you in the future." Chapter 2042. Duanmu Xiongtu nodded. His gaze shifted from Duanmu Xiaoman to Lu Ruashi, who was in his arms, and whispered, "Is the new sacred master leaving too?" "Ha ha ha. Elder Xiongtu, you're confused." A burst of laughter came from behind him. It was Suruga, who was overjoyed, who came forward. His brows were filled with excitement. Today, Su Yi had bathed the Holy Mountain in blood. He had finally vented his anger. Suruga had already vented his anger on the Long family. The Sacred Mountain had been suppressing the Shunjian Gate in recent years. How could Suruga not be happy at this moment? "Elder Xiongtu, isn't it obvious who the new Sacred Master is?" Suruga looked at Li Ling this. Duanmu Xiongtu was stunned. Su Yi smiled and said, "Xiahong House, congratulations on making the right choice again." Xiahong House smiled faintly. He had never been so relaxed before. He turned around and looked at Li Ling. Li Ling immediately blushed. She lowered her head and remained silent. "The Bawang sect welcomes you. Come and see Ruashi more often. You're leaving?" Lan Linglian pulled Yuma over and said unhappily, "Sister Yuma and I are here. One is here to watch the show, and the other is here to save your wife." Hearing this, Dugi Yuma frowned, and the light blue radiance dimmed a little. Lan Xiaolian giggled and said, "I was wrong. Su Yi, you owe me another favor." Su Yi knew that although the aristocratic families did not contribute this time, they had subtly intimidated the Sacred Mountain. Su Yi would remember this favor in his heart. Friends were like charcoal in snowy weather. Su-yi just realized that Dugi Yuma came alone. Miss Lan, we are allies. I won't say thank you. Su-yi laughed and looked at Lu Ruashi, who was sleeping peacefully. He looked at Dugu Yuma with gratitude. Lady Dugu, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Ruashi. What kind of illness does Ruashi have? The corner of Dugu Yuma's mouth twitched, and there was a complicated fluctuation in his blue eyes. Master taught me some medical skills so that I could save lives. It's nothing much. It's just that I can only see with my eyes that Sister Ruashin's body is like a huge furnace. Furnace? You can see the changes in the human body with your eyes? Su-yi frowned, a look of surprise in his eyes. Staring at Dugi Yuma's blue pupils, Su-yi calmed down immediately. He decided to leave the blue crystal double moon pupils for later. Recalling Duanmu Xiaoman's words, Su-yi said, Xiaoman said she likes you a lot. If you're free, let's go back to Yuqian Palace together. No, I've been out for a long time. I'm going back to the Myriad Sword Alliance to see if Mu Yang has come out. Dugi Yuma pulled Lon Balian away. Lon Balian turned around and glared at Su-yi. You brainless guy. Remember to say hello to Jun Hao Ian for me. Su-yi gave her a meaningful look. What a debt of love. Suruga sighed and shook his head. Su-yi sighed bitterly. How could he not know what Dugi Yuma was thinking? However, some things that involve aristocratic families were not easy to solve. Su-yi shook his head. He took a deep breath and said, Moreover, she's so pure and fragile. Master, let's go back to Yuqian Palace. If Suruga knew that he could reunite with Duanmu Qingtian, he would be overjoyed. The knot in his heart would definitely be untied. The changes in the Sacred Mountain will shake the entire Zhong province. The Xinjiang Gate is also involved. I want to go back and tidy things up. Yuqian Palace and Bawang sect also need you. I'll be relieved if you can come back safely. Su Kuanga cast her gaze on Situ Luyan, Mu Yao, and the others. Mu Yao was standing with Gu Suxin with a complicated look. Su-yi nodded, thinking that he wasn't in a hurry anyway. At this moment, the Golden Fire Beast King and Shangwan Tianshan came over. Beast King, bring the remaining barbarian demons back to Bawang sect. Tell Big Brother about the situation here. I'll go back to the Chaos Realm after dealing with Yuqian Palace. Brother Tianshan, follow me to Yuqian Palace. I have something important to tell you. Shangwan Tianshan's eyes moved. Su-yi, this brat was so bold. He knew that it must be important and nodded. After watching the Xinjiang Gate leave, Su-yi was about to bring Lu Ruashi and Shangwan Tianshan back to Yuqian Palace when a familiar figure entered his eyes. In front of the sacred martial hall, the guests had already left. Su-yi immediately handed Lu Ruashi over to Shangwan Tianshan. Father-in-law. Su-yi turned into a stream of light and came to Lu Zongyuan's side. Everyone's eyes trembled. The Su-yi in front of them was no longer the same as before. When Lu Zongyuan saw Su-yi, he couldn't help but tremble. His eyes wandered as he said with a trembling voice, Su-yi, father-in-law, aren't you going back to Yuqian Palace with us? Su-yi said with a smile. When Yuqian Palace was mentioned, Lu Zongyuan's eyes trembled. His gaze fell on Lu Ruashi. What do you want to say? Lu Zongyuan let out a long sigh. His eyes instantly aged a lot. Su-yi spread out his hands and said, I want to know Ruashi's past and why she came to Sacred Mountain. What secrets does she have on her body? Lu Zongyuan suddenly raised his head. His eyes were burning and he was extremely nervous. He said seriously, some things can't be hidden. Let's go. I'll accompany you. Lu Zongyuan took a deep breath and walked to Shangwan Tianshan's side. He supported Lu Ruashi, his eyes full of love. He gently caressed Lu Ruashi's face and sighed bitterly. Shira, you've suffered. Boom! Below in the void, the people of the Sacred Mountain had already begun to repair the Sacred Mountain, but Xiahong House brought Li Ling along and floated over. The Holy Eve's elder has already returned to the depths of Sacred Mountain. He also promised to take me as his disciple. Su-yi, you don't want to keep one more. Xiahong House's eyes trembled. For the first time, light flashed in her eyes. Su-yi smiled lightly. At this time, The two had already gotten rid of their differences. Looking at Xiehong House in front of them, he suddenly said seriously, "I don't want to stay in Sacred Mountain for even a moment longer. However, Sacred Mountain will be completely different from now on. Perhaps I will change my mind. However, the Long family must be eradicated." Coldness shot out from Xiehong House's eyes. She nodded and said coldly, "Sacred Mountain will be in seclusion for 3 years. If anything happens to the Long family, I will be the first to rush over. If the Long family doesn't die, I swear I am not human. Of course, I hope you can lead Sacred Mountain to become a new Tianfeng Martial Pavilion." Hearing these words, Xiehong House's eyes exuded a sense of yearning. She said seriously, "For Tianfeng Martial Pavilion, I will become stronger as soon as possible. 3 years is also the best time for me." As her voice fell, Su Yi used the space-splitting jade left behind by Heavenly Palace to open a crack in space. In a flash, he returned to Heavenly Palace. Chapter 2043. Returning to the Yuqian Palace, Su Yi supported his tired body and settled down the Lu family, Shangwan Tianxin and the others, temporarily letting them stay with the Su family. When the Lu family saw Su Yun Tian, they were filled with shock. They did not expect Su Yun Tian to pull Lu Zongyuan aside and ask about everything that happened in the barbarian city. Old men seemed to have endless things to say. Su Yi smiled and left the courtyard of the Su family. After that, he supported Lu Ruoshi and headed towards the Yuqian Palace alone. He handed Lu Ruoshi over to the Duanmu Qingtian and Elder Gyue, while he went to find the Duanmu Xiaoman. After Su Yi left, Elder Gyue had many guesses as to why the Black Robe was hiding the identity of the Duanmu Qingtian. But from Su Yi's attitude, Elder Gyue still understood. Gyue had always been smiling indifferently, not revealing anything. Thinking of the 4 months that Su Yi left, Gyue was even more amazed by Su Yi. Gyue naturally knew that at this time, the less people who knew about the identity of the Duanmu Qingtian, the more protection there would be. Flying alone in the spiraling immortal qi, surrounded by spiritual birds and immortal beasts, Su Yi's brows did not relax. Today, the Long family had already sensed the bloodbath of the Sacred Mountain. This news would quickly sweep through the entire barbarian continent like a whirlwind. In order to divert the attention, Su Yi had to quickly recover and leave the Yuqian Palace as soon as possible. More importantly, he had to complete the army's plan as soon as possible. After entering the night, the charm of the Empress Peak was still the same. Spiraling immortal qi floated and spiritual birds flew around. Su Yi was immersed in it, feeling relaxed and happy. Even if there were hundreds of insects scratching his heart and the heart-tearing pain, his heart gradually calmed down. Standing on the cliff, Su Yi immediately felt the divine, profound spirit meridians bathed in a whirlpool of immortal qi, his mind shaking. Returning to Zhongzhen Empress Peak once again, Su Yi naturally had a different feeling in his heart. It had been a few months, but felt like a lifetime had passed. At this moment, Duanmu Xiaoman was inside Fu Tian Divine Palace, anxiously waiting for Su Yi's return. Using his primordial qi, Su Yi returned to the Divine Palace. After a brief greeting, Su Yi drilled in the earth veins and told Duanmu Xiaoman not to let anyone come in and disturb him. As soon as he entered the earth vein, Su Yi lost all strength in his limbs. Like a ball of cotton, he collapsed onto the earth vein. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. With trembling hands, Su Yi laboriously took out a large handful of the blood jade spirit ginseng's roots from his interspatial bag and set up a mysterious space. Su Yi sat upright under the surging wind and thunderbolts. Divine light shone, and the air was dense. Su Yi's breathing gradually calmed down. Closing his eyes, he held his breath and focused his mind. After adjusting his breathing and healing, Su Yi sat cross-legged on the edge of the earth vein. The light of the earth vein that was quietly flowing dissipated and shone on Su Yi's pale face. The bulging veins on his arms were like small snakes coiling around. It was extremely terrifying. It was obvious that Su Yi's injuries this time were definitely not lighter than the space-time storm in the Three Ravens region. Fighting Yuqi, extinguishing Sheng Hua, injuring Sheng Feng and Sheng Yun, all relied on his strong willpower and physical strength to resist the complete metal attribute energy. Previously, he had forcefully opened the desolate heavenly star. Su Yi knew that his body had seriously exceeded the load. If he did not treat it, it would definitely have an irreversible effect on his foundation. This brat is even more stubborn than his grandmother's donkey. Sooner or later, I will die with him. Chi Fei Hong was fuming with anger. He moved his transparent body and carefully observed above the earth vein while cursing. If this brat isn't stubborn, would he still be called Su Yi? If you don't get used to it, you might be the one to die. The iron soulfish, who was already used to all of this, smiled helplessly. A hint of admiration melted in his small eyes. Hearing the iron soulfish's words, Chi Fei Hong's body could not help but thump. Looking back at the demonic creature that could reside in Su Yi's body, Chi Fei Hong's throat moved. Chi Fei Hong's beard trembled subconsciously. He smiled awkwardly and moved his translucent body back into the mysterious space. Hiss. At this moment, Su Yi's pores opened rapidly. The energy fine threads in the air that were visible to the naked eye quickly entered Su Yi's body. They followed the wide meridians and went straight to the Great Void Divine Sea. The dried-up Great Void Divine Ocean was like an endless sponge, absorbing the energy of the space and the earth vein in one gulp. Gudong Gudong! Light flashed. The radiance around Su Yi's body continued to shine brightly. Soon a day had passed. Dawn had just arrived. Amidst the clouds, a ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, bringing a splendid golden color to the whole world. The peaks of the mountains were connected, just like a fairyland. At this moment, golden clouds were densely covered with flowers and plants. It was a beautiful sight. After walking out of the earth vein, Su Yi's eyes glowed with vitality and vitality again. He stretched his back, and his muscles moved and crackled. Clenching his fists slightly, Su Yi could feel that his muscles and bones were filled with strength. Looking into his mind, the Great Void Divine Ocean was already full. The high-speed rotating cyclone was like a small tornado, about to overflow at any time. Phew! Exhaling a long breath of turbid air, Su Yi nodded and smiled bitterly to himself. The space, the spiritual herbs, and the earth vein have finally recovered. But this sorrow star consumed too much energy. Looks like I have to think of a way to expand my dantian in the future. As his consciousness filled his body, Su Yi thought about his plans for the future and carefully checked every inch of his bones and skin. There would not be such an opportunity in the future. Su Yi's current goal was to be able to heal himself in peace without leaving any sequelae. After checking one by one, the 18 hidden entrances in the divine spiritual meridians were still shining like stars, and there was nothing unusual. Su Yi's eyebrows had a trace of doubt. Then, he formed a hand sign and went deeper into his body. Focusing on feeling, Su Yi found that in his lower abdomen near his dantian, there was a trace of extremely fine metal elemental chi. It was still lingering around, like a snake moving back and forth. It was quite agile. Su Yi frowned slightly and was puzzled. Earth, water, wind, and fire were his natal chi. How could the metal elemental chi appear in his body? Slowly opening his eyes, Su Yi reached out his palm and flicked his finger. Quietly, he activated his Kai Yuan Zong Stage 3 cultivation and tried to expel this trace of metal elemental chi. Suddenly, a stream of energy that did not contain any elemental chi left his fingertip and flew away, aiming at a crooked tree in front of him. Kaboom! The sharp killing intent was domineering and mighty. Wherever the waterfall passed, a thick ravine was carved out on the ground. At the same time, the old tree outside the cave exploded with a roar, penetrating through the empty sky and echoing incessantly. Looking at the crooked tree split in the middle, a bright golden flower emerged from the trunk. Chapter 2044. Immediately after, it turned into flames and rose, causing the surrounding temperature to rise rapidly with a rumbling sound. Looking at the terrifying effect, Su Yi's lips gradually curled into a bright smile, revealing his snow-white teeth. Rumble! In the distance, light and shadow instantly became hazy. Through the ripples in space, one could clearly see that Su Yi's face was filled with surprise and surprise. This ordinary Yuan Qi attack seems to be even stronger than when I was at the 3rd level of Origin Ancestor Realm, and it feels like I'm about to break through again. Su Yi looked at his hands in disbelief, his eyes glowing as he nodded continuously. Of course, you've been recognized by the Blood Demon Killing Godsword and borrowed the complete heaven-suppressing metal stone from the Snow Red House. Even if your attributes are different, the rich and natural metal attribute Yuan Qi can be used by you. You can say that it has increased your attack power. At that moment, an indifferent and cold voice sounded. Su Yi abruptly raised his head and saw a slender and elegant figure in white. He couldn't help but smile, his starry eyes emitting a gentle glow. Then I didn't lose out, but instead profited from a disaster. Su Yi smiled faintly as his gaze moved back and forth on Duanmu Xiaoman's curves. Duanmu Xiaoman was exceptionally enchanting today. Her delicate skin was faintly discernible outside her muslin dress, and her slender waist made one's imagination run wild. Su Yi, who had just recovered, was glowing. Instantly, his mouth became dry, and many charming thoughts appeared in his mind like a little bull targeting its prey. Looking at Su Yi's slightly playful and charming eyes, Duanmu Xiaoman seemed to feel that this fellow had other thoughts, but she couldn't guess them. She frowned and said, "You can say that." Su Yi shook his head, his magnetic and deep voice slowly drifting out. He shook his finger and said, "I'm not referring to this." "Then what do you mean?" Boom! Su Yi's lips curled up slightly as Yuan Qi poured into his feet. The small invisible wings on his back spread out in the air, and a silver-white ray of light swept past instantly. After a few battles, Su Yi's speed was no longer inferior to an Origin Domain Realm expert. Duanmu Xiaoman obviously didn't expect Su Yi's speed to be so fast. Just as she was about to speak, her fragrant cheeks were held up by a warm jade-like palm, and her light pink lips were tightly pressed against his. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes instantly widened with sparkling light. She placed her hand on Su Yi's chest and clenched it into a fist, then powerlessly dropped it. A warm feeling flowed in her heart. Duanmu Xiaoman gradually closed her bright moon-like eyes, enjoying the tranquil warmth at this moment. After a few breaths, Duanmu Xiaoman felt that Su Yi had already left her. She opened her eyes and saw a pair of star-like, sword-like eyes staring at her. Immediately, a blush spread to her neck, and she lowered her head without saying a word. "You're getting more and more daring." Whoosh! Su Yi shrugged his shoulders and pulled Duanmu Xiaoman into his embrace. Her willowy body twisted in the air and leaned against Su Yi's chest. The unique scent of a man was extremely pleasing to the nose. Duanmu Xiaoman whispered again, "Let go. This is the heavenly divine palace." Su Yi's hand passed through Duanmu Xiaoman's hair. Her black hair flowed over his fingertips like a waterfall, and a faint fragrance spread out. Su Yi also enjoyed this moment of silence. He said softly, "During the Tianfeng battle, I said that I would bring Senior Qingtian back, and now I've done it. I've experienced many difficulties and dangers, but I still have a wife. Isn't this a blessing?" Duanmu Xiaoman, who was already in love, pouted and said coquettishly, "You're wrong." "How am I wrong?" Su Yi's eyes moved slightly, and he tilted his head to look at Duanmu Xiaoman in his embrace. "Isn't Sister Ruoxin your wife too? You have more than one now." Duanmu Xiaoman clenched her fist and patted Su Yi's chest lightly as she rebuked. "Ah, this." Su Yi's body instantly stiffened. and his face was filled with embarrassment. Jealousy was the nature of all women. Even though Duanmu Xiaoman had weathered many storms and experienced many vicissitudes of life, she was still a woman after all. Hearing Duanmu Xiaoman's sour words, Su Yi was momentarily at a loss for words, and he could only smile embarrassedly. Raising her head, Duanmu Xiaoman chuckled and revealed a brilliant smile. She rolled her eyes and said, "I like Ruoxin a lot. I quite like Ruoxi. Moreover, she met you earlier than I did. I'm quite sad about this." Saying this, Duanmu Xiaoman's ice-sculpted face flashed with a trace of regret and helplessness. Su Yi chuckled, hugged Duanmu Xiaoman even tighter, and gently planted a soft kiss on her ear. "Don't be sad. Give me a baby first, then you'll win it back." Immediately, Duanmu Xiaoman's cheeks flushed red like a bright peach. She frowned, broke free from Su Yi's embrace, and angrily scolded. "You're getting more and more out of hand. Who wants to give you a baby?" Su Yi stroked his hair and looked at the bashful Duanmu Xiaoman. He discovered that Duanmu Xiaoman had become more like a little woman. The return of Duanmu, Qingtian, and him had finally untied the knot in Duanmu Xiaoman's heart, and she had completely let go of her self-esteem. In the past, who would dare to be so impudent in front of the Duanmu Xiaoman? "Haha, let's go and give birth now." Su Yi's lips curled into a sinister smile. He grabbed Duanmu Xiaoman's soft hand and walked in the direction of the celestial divine palace. Duanmu Xiaoman swayed her hips and leisurely followed behind. Whoosh, whoosh, a black shadow flew through the air and landed gracefully. Su Yi raised his head, raised his eyebrows, and said in a low voice, "Master Qingtian, you're here." Ahem. Duanmu Qingtian saw Su Yi and his sister's intimate actions and immediately felt a little uncomfortable. Duanmu Xiaoman also instantly broke free from Su Yi's hand and looked at Duanmu Qingtian. "Why are you here? Didn't I ask you to take care of Ruoxin?" Su Yi instantly regained his cold expression and laughed in his heart. No wonder Duanmu Qingtian was so afraid of his sister. It turned out that Duanmu Xiaoman was also cold to Duanmu Qingtian. "Yes, it's because of Ruoxin. She's awake," Duanmu Qingtian said in a low voice. Su Yi's eyes lit up and exclaimed, "Ruoxin is awake? Then let's go see her." Hearing this, Duanmu Qingtian was a little anxious. He stretched out his hand to stop Su Yi and said, "Wait, I'm here to discuss this matter with you guys. Ruoxin's body constitution is not simple." "What do you mean?" Su Yi was stunned and immediately understood what Duanmu Qingtian meant. Duanmu Qingtian heaved a long sigh and looked up with a solemn look in his eyes. "Sister, have you heard of the rainbow exquisite egg?" "Rainbow exquisite egg." Su Yi tilted his head and sent a telepathic message to Qi Feihong. "Have you heard of it? What is it?" Su Yi asked Qi Feihong with rapt attention. If the Duanmu Qingtian was so concerned about it, it must be something extraordinary. Su Yi's heart couldn't help but twist. After hearing this, Duanmu Xiaoman looked up and carefully searched her mind for a moment. In the end, she shook her head. Chapter 2045. I've never heard of it. What is it? Sensing that something was wrong with Duanmu Qingtian, Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes turned serious. "I've never heard of it. It shouldn't be a product of the Tianyin continent." Qi Feihong narrowed his eyes and stroked his beard, searching for information about the rainbow egg in his mind. Duanmu Qingtian let out a long sigh. His gaze fell on Su Yi as he spoke in a deep voice. "The rainbow egg is a wonderful cultivation physique. The owner has absolute control over the attributes of Yuan Qi. However, without a great opportunity, it cannot be activated. Once activated, the heart will be surrounded by 7 different types of Yuan Qi and continuously absorb the Yuan Qi of the martial artist, growing together with the martial artist. Legend has it that when it reaches the peak, the entire heart will turn into a rainbow color and possess extreme energy. At that time, The martial artist's entire heart will turn into a round and beautiful egg that is incomparably resplendent. Hearing this, Su-yi still did not feel that the rainbow egg had any drawbacks. His eyes were filled with doubt as he asked, "It doesn't sound like there's anything bad about it." Duanmu Qingtian curled his lips and lifted his black robe. A beam of light flashed in his eyes as he said, "After it is activated, it does not affect the warrior at all. On the contrary, it will help the warrior to cultivate faster, giving him a talent that others can't match." "Isn't that a good thing?" Su-yi's brows relaxed as his jade-like face relaxed. His body also relaxed. Duanmu Qingtian shook his head, and his expression turned solemn. He looked up with a sharp gaze and said, "However, it's because of the enormous energy in her heart that it often becomes a cultivation item for unruly cultivators. Correspondingly, those who have a seven-colored exquisite heart will have their hearts dug out and die." Hearing this, Su-yi and Duanmu Xiaoman were instantly stunned. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were filled with worry as she looked at the stiff Su-yi silently. This kind of constitution has always been passed down through the bloodline. Even outside the Tian barbarian territory, it is a rare existence in any star region. As far as I know, it is difficult for those with long eggs to survive. None of them had a good ending. Duanmu Qingtian let out a long sigh. He was also very worried. After a long silence, Su-yi waved his hand. His dry lips twitched mechanically. Su-yi's eyes flickered fiercely as he exchanged glances with Duanmu Qingtian and Duanmu Xiaoman. "Ha! Impossible. Nothing would happen to Ruoxin in Yuqian Palace. Even if she has the rainbow exquisite egg, I will protect her. I won't let any harm come to her. Yes, I won't let anything happen to her." Su-yi smiled embarrassedly. A trace of panic flashed across his brows. He talked to himself as if he was talking to himself. He was absent-minded and unsettled. In an instant, a fragrant wind blew past. Duanmu Xiaoman gently held Su-yi's arm. A bright smile appeared on her otherworldly face as she said gently, "Ruoxin will be fine in Yuqian Palace. Qingtian and I will protect her with you. Hey, don't worry." Turning to look at Duanmu Xiaoman, Su-yi's heart warmed. He nodded and put his hand on Duanmu Xiaoman's hand. His expression gradually improved as he said softly, "Let's go and see Ruoxin." Yuqian Palace, Xiaoman's room. Inside the simple room, Su-yi, Duanmu Xiaoman, and Duanmu Qingtian came to Lu Ruoxin's bed. When Guye and the Pill elders saw the three of them, they quickly retreated. The light yellow curtains were scattered. Lu Ruoxin lay peacefully on the bed. Her eyelashes moved slightly, the bright light shining. She was so beautiful and peaceful. Su-yi sat on the edge of the bed. He stretched out his hand and gently stroked the side of Lu Ruoxin's face. His heart ached as he bitterly smiled. "Why are you a rainbow egg?" The corner of Su-yi's mouth twitched. The Lu Ruoxin in his eyes was incomparably haggard. Looking at his childhood sweetheart, the proud daughter of heaven in the eyes of others, the goddess at the peak of the glacier, who had finally given her heart to him, Su-yi could not feel happy at all. If everything was as Duanmu Qingtian had said, then Lu Ruoxin's mother must have passed away because she was carrying a rainbow egg. Lu Zhongyan, as the lord of the barbarian city, had hidden this matter for so many years and did not announce it to the public. It could be imagined that Lu Zhongyuan could not afford to offend this enemy. The sacred mountain, as Lu Zhongyuan's distant relative, seemed to have never made any moves. This enemy was also someone that the sacred mountain could not afford to offend. Just who could it be? If he knows of Ruoxin's whereabouts, he will definitely harm Ruoxin. Thinking of this, Su-yi gradually frowned. He sank in a deep thought and unconsciously tightened his grip on the bed. Creak! The bed began to creak because of the weight. Lu Ruoxin gradually woke up from her sleep. Her eyelashes fluttered, deep and crystal like a spirit in the night. In the haze, Su-yi's determined face was reflected in Lu Ruoxin's eyes. "Su-yi, what's wrong with you? Who made you angry?" Lu Ruoxin opened her mouth and her pale lips curved into an arc. She placed her palm on Su-yi's fist, trying to get him to relax. Nothing. I'm not angry. Coming back to his senses, Su-yi looked at Lu Ruoxin, who had already woken up. He sighed in his heart, not knowing how to respond. Silly sister, he's very happy. A laugh like that of an oriole came from behind. Duanmu Xiaoman leisurely walked over, sizing up Lu Ruoxin's complexion, and said softly, "Happy." Lu Ruoxin's gaze turned to the graceful Duanmu Xiaoman, a puzzled look on her face. Duanmu Xiaoman chuckled, pointing at Su-yi and complaining, "It's all this guy's fault. I told him, you've already brought Sister Ruoxin back to the Heavenly Palace. Why didn't you marry her earlier?" Can you guess what he said? He insisted on waiting for a while. Hearing these words, Su-yi and Lu Ruoxin's faces both stiffened. Looking at Duanmu Xiaoman, Su-yi's starry eyes were filled with confusion. Duanmu Xiaoman gently pressed on Su-yi's shoulder, indicating that Su-yi should not speak. She then sat down, took Ruoxin's hand, and said softly, "Sister Ruoxin, if you don't mind, I'll call you sister. Elder Gyue should have told you about the Sacred Mountain Tournament. Li Ling and Xiehong House have already become the new Saint Emperors and Saint Sovereigns. It can be said that Gyue brought you back in front of the entire Sacred Mountain." Duanmu Xiaoman turned to look at the puzzled Su-yi and rolled her eyes. "I've also heard about your arranged marriage when you were a child. This fellow insisted on waiting for you to recover before bringing up the matter of marriage with you. I advised him not to let the girl wait for too long. Otherwise, he would be irresponsible." Duanmu Xiaoman pulled Su-yi out of his emotions with just a few words. Chapter 2046. Lu Ruoxi immediately sat up on the bed. Her undergarments were slightly exposed, revealing her snow-white skin. Her mesmerizing collarbone was faintly discernible, as delicate and alluring as a pear blossom in spring, causing one to be unable to extricate themselves from it. "No, Duanmu. Sister Duanmu, I've long heard about the matter between you and Su. You've done too much for him. No matter what, Su, he should marry you first." Lu Ruoxi instantly panicked, her gaze constantly moving back and forth between Su-yi and Duanmu Xiaoman. Her snow-white face and pink neck blushed uncontrollably, like a panicked little white rabbit twisting its body on the bed. Duanmu Xiaoman was a goddess in the hearts of countless people in the Sky Barbarian continent. She was ruthless and merciless. Yet at this moment, she was being so modest and gentle to her. Lu Ruoxi was extremely terrified and sent a signal for help to Su-yi. Su-yi was even more confused, but he looked at Duanmu Xiaoman's back view with warmth and appreciation. Su-yi's heart was immediately filled with pure affection and love for a woman with such perfect looks and exceedingly high cultivation. After experiencing ups and downs, she was willing to go to such an extent for him. After a long while, the two of them were still in a deadlock, arguing back and forth. One was unwilling to compromise, while the other was determined to bring about a happy marriage. Duanmu Qingtian watched from the side. Within his black robe, he furiously shook his head and roared in a low voice, glaring at Su-yi like a wild beast. "You brat, what have you done to deserve this? I've lived for over 100 years, and I'm still single. You come for two at once. Are you trying to anger me to death?" Duanmu Qingtian signaled to Su-yi with his eyes and transmitted his voice with his yuan qi, trying his best not to let the two of them hear him. Su-yi's eyes curved into crescents as he pulled his senior outside. "Let's go, senior. Let's go out for a walk. Let them stay here." "Su-yi, where are you going?" Lu Ruoxi tightly pursed her lips. She had just recovered, and her complexion was still as pale as snow. She was afraid that Su-yi would leave again. Su-yi turned around and exchanged a look with Duanmu Xiaoman. He shrugged his nose and said, "I'll go out so that you two can have a good chat. After all, we'll be a family in the future. But how about I marry both of them?" With a loud laugh, Su-yi pulled the Duanmu Qingtian's horsetail whisk, pushed open the door, and left, leaving behind the bashful Lu Ruoxi and the Duanmu Xiaoman who were scolding him in a tender manner. How unrepentant! How shameless! Lu Ruashi cursed angrily, but the corners of her mouth curled up into a beautiful arc. Her watery eyes looked at Duanmu Xiaoman. Su Yi's idea just now seemed to be pretty good too. Duanmu Xiaoman looked back at Lu Ruashi and secretly spread out the soul pressure of a half-step Yuan Tian expert. The soul pressure entered Lu Ruashi's meridians like flowing water, and Duanmu Xiaoman's expression gradually became serious. The moon was white, and the wind was clear. The sparse stars were like a chessboard, shining brightly. Looking up, one could see the light clouds and the moonlight that reflected the clouds. It was very pitiful. A dark blue mountain peak stood tall. The mountain was misty, and water vapor curled around it like a silver-white gauze tent. From afar, it looked like a blue wave floating between the water and the sky. The mercury-like light shone in all directions. The majestic half-broken Sword Mountain peak stood alone on the broken Sword Sea, guarding the heavenly command palace. The snow-white waves accompanied by the sweet sea breeze made Su Yi and Duanmu Qingtian's clothes flutter. Su Yi sat leisurely on the shore, letting the flying jades and pearls wet the corners of his clothes. Whoosh whoosh! A piece of stone was pinched between Su Yi's index finger and middle finger. With a light flick of his wrist, the stone quickly turned into a stream of light and hit the surface of the sea a few times. It continuously churned and stirred up layers of ripples, like a silver flying fish rushing to the horizon. The clear and crystalline waves reflected two determined faces. This is where I left the bloodsword fruit back then. I was afraid that the Long family would chase after me, so I deliberately left in a hurry. But I didn't expect. Sigh. Duanmu Qingtian's gaze was sharp, but it was instantly replaced by disappointment and frustration. The hazy moonlight was intoxicating as he whispered. I didn't expect that I almost made a big mistake. I let the blood-red demonic dragon become a half-step Yuan Tian expert and destroyed the Heavenly Command Palace, right? And I almost caused the Heavenly Command Palace to fall into internal strife. Su Yi patted the dust off his clothes and slowly turned his head to look at Duanmu Qingtian, who looked a little lonely under the black robe. Hearing this, Duanmu Qingtian also shook his head. Then he complained in a low voice, "Kid, is this the tone you should use when talking to your master?" Su Yi smiled faintly. His dark and deep eyes were like pearls in the black smoke. The deep light made people feel terrified for no reason, as he said in a low voice. I have always been lawless and unscrupulous. It's true that I respect my master, but if I become a disciple of an evil master, I can't say what I want to say. I don't buy it. There is no reason to speak of in the martial arts. If you are strong, you can make the heavens submit to you. If you are weak, even a dragon will have to obediently lie down. I want to be the proud sword in the human world. Duanmu Qingtian snorted, then let out a long breath. He nodded as if he admitted it and said, "Kid, your words are very bold. This is my fault. I originally wanted to find the Heavenly Wind Divine Sword. I thought that the Broken Sword Peak would definitely have it. I didn't expect that after going around in circles, it would be in your hands. That's why I say this is fate. The fate between me and Senior is very deep." Su Yi smiled devilishly. Duanmu Qingtian naturally knew what Su Yi was thinking. He rolled his eyes. He immediately pretended to hit and said with a slightly threatening voice, "My sister is not afraid of anyone in this life, and she will not submit to anyone. She only cares about you. Kid, I don't think you have the ability to bully her, but if you make her unhappy, I will definitely give you a slap." Looking at Duanmu Qingtian, who didn't seem to be joking, Su Yi's heart skipped a beat. Then he felt relieved and said softly, "I will follow brother-in-law's teachings." Su Yi naturally knew how Duanmu Xiaoman treated Su Yi. When he thought of this proud and peerless goddess, Su Yi's heart was filled with endless affection. How could he bear to bully her? Scram! Duanmu Qingtian rolled his eyes again. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration and said with a grin, "That's right. Kid, you're in luck today. I still have a lot of good wine hidden around the broken sword sea. After so many years, it's already very fragrant and is very beneficial to cultivation. Let's go. Tonight, we won't go home until we're drunk. Duanmu Qingtian began to rub his fists. Seeing this, Su Yi quickly got up and waved his hand, saying, No, 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 I still have things to do. Let's forget about tonight, brother-in-law. What? You want to find that kid Lu Zongyuan? Ask about Ruashi? Duanmu Qingtian frowned, his sword eyes shining brightly under the starlight. Su Yi silently agreed. Thinking about Ruashi's physique, his heart was filled with worry. He nodded and said, Let's leave it for later. Let's hurry up and ask City Lord Lu, or else I won't be at ease. Chapter 2047. Fine. Leave it for when you and little Ruashi get married. Count as my gift. Duanmu Qingtian patted Su Yi's shoulder and laughed. Following Su Yi's departure, Duanmu Qingtian's face gradually became as serious as iron under the night sky. Taking a deep breath, he said in a low voice, The Long family is not as easy as the Sacred Mountain. Not to mention there's still that person. Kid, how far can you go? The Su family courtyard was brightly lit and filled with voices. The lively atmosphere and the cold and quiet Yutian palace formed a sharp contrast. At this time, when fellow townsfolk saw fellow townsfolk, their eyes were filled with tears. There were endless stories of their hometown and endless conversations about their hometown. For the entire day, the entire Su family was in a state of excitement, especially Old Master Su Yuntian. Not only did Su Yi return, he also brought the Lu family along. When he heard that Lu Zongyuan came to preside over Su Yi and Lu Ruashi's wedding, Su Yuntian was so excited that he smashed the table. Jinyuan, did you see? Yer has grown up and is going to marry a wife. It's Ruashi girl. Su Yuntian's wide palm wiped away the tears on his wrinkled face. The entire Su family, including Su Jiao and Su Jingting, also quietly wiped away their tears. In these 10 years, the Su family had drifted from place to place and suffered much criticism. Su Jingyuan's disappearance and Su Yi's mischievousness made the Su family bear a huge burden. Fortunately, the clouds and mist had been dispelled. The Su family had now walked to the peak. When Old Master Su Yuntian heard about Lu Zongyuan and Su Yi's magnificent feat of massacring everyone and washing the sky with blood, the Su family was extremely excited. Good. That's my good grandson. City Lord Lu, I've said it before. My grandson will sweep through everyone and become an invincible hero that the world looks up to. He's more outstanding than Jinyuan. He's the glory of my Su family. Su Yuntian patted his thigh, his slightly red eyes filled with tears of excitement and pride as he nodded his head continuously. Grandfather. At this moment, Su Yi shouted from the doorway. Then, with a gust of wind, he entered the Su family's courtyard. Everyone's gaze shot towards the green silhouette at the door. Su Yuntian stood up and happily said, You're back? Has everything been settled? Come on, have a drink with your city, Lord Lu. No, father-in-law. At that moment, Su Yi was slightly embarrassed. When he approached Su Yi, he could smell a strong smell of alcohol. The pungent smell of alcohol made Su Yi shake his head bitterly. In his memories, it had been a long time since his grandfather had been this happy ever since he moved to the Heavenly Command Palace. It was not good for him to brush off Su Yuntian's mood, so he smiled faintly. Grandfather, not yet. I'm here to discuss something with City Lord Lu. Oh. Su Yuntian was slightly surprised. Soon after, Su Yuntian slapped his forehead. His slightly tipsy but still sharp gaze landed on Lu Zongyuan's body. Look at this old man. Su, he must be here to discuss the marriage contract with you. Brother Lu, you and Ear should go and discuss this. I'll leave the marriage to Yi. This old man does not have any objections. I watched Ruashi grow up. Su Yi nodded his head, respectfully bowing towards Lu Zongyuan. Making an inviting gesture, his gaze deep, he said, This way, please. Father-in-law. Lu Zongyuan awkwardly smiled. Looking at this 19-year-old youngster, his aura was clearly that of a supreme expert. He could not help but twitch his mouth, clasping his hands. Old man, Zongyuan will go first. Good. Everyone continue to drink. It's been a long time since the Su family and the Lu family have gathered together. It's still in the Heavenly Command Palace. Tonight we won't rest until we're drunk. Su Yuntian continued to greet everyone. Su Yuntian's voice was so loud that even the deaf could hear it. In an instant, the atmosphere in the courtyard once again rose to the peak, boiling with noise. Under the enthusiastic greetings and the joyous sounds of toasting, Su, Yi, and Lu Zongyuan came to the temporary courtyard of the Lu family. In the darkness, Su Yi's green robe fluttered. His gaze was cold and deep, a never-before-seen calmness flitting across his face. Father-in-law, do you have anything you want to say to me? Lu Zongyuan subconsciously took a step back. The current Su Yi could casually kill him with just a finger. His cultivation of the second level of the Origin Emperor realm was not enough in front of Su Yi. Lu Zongyuan's eyes twitched, his face revealing a difficult expression. He raised his head to look at the bright moon above the courtyard, his expression desolate as he said in a low voice, "You already know? The rainbow exquisite egg. The mother inherits it. Of course I know." Su Yi's gaze sized up the father of his sweetheart, like a withered leaf in the wind, his tone gradually becoming gentler. "Then do you regret it?" Lu Zongyuan's heart was uneasy. Everyone knew the principle of treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. In the dark night, a biting cold, killing intent pierced through the heavens and earth. Su Yi coldly laughed, staring straight at Lu Zongyuan. "I regret it." "You?" Lu Zongyuan raised his head, somewhat at a loss. "What I regret is, why didn't I attack the Saint Mountain earlier to protect Ruashi? What I regret is, why didn't I get to know Ruashi earlier to understand the pain in my heart?" Su Yi's tone was resolute. He was incomparably eager to know the past of his sweetheart. Lu Zongyuan nodded, the corner of his mouth twitching as he bitterly laughed. His resolute gaze gradually turned into hatred, resentment, and viciousness. Faintly, there was a flame constantly jumping. He gradually clenched his fist and knocked on the stone table, saying in a serious voice, "Good. Everything starts from Ruashi's mother." Lu Zongyuan recalled. Ruashi's mother's name is In Qingwei. She was close to me since young. She was pure, virtuous, and kind. In the entire barbarian city, she was one of the top beauties. 20 years ago, when I had just married Qingwei and was about to give birth to Ruashi, as he spoke to her, Lu Zongyuan's expression suddenly became ugly. The joints of his hands protruded as he held his head and shook. "It's all my fault. It's all my fault." An indescribable pain flashed across his eyes as tears continuously dripped onto the table. Su Yi also sat down quietly as he listened to Lu Zongyuan continue. "A few days before she gave birth, Qingwei told me that recently she could always hear the shrill cries of birds. At first, I thought it was an auditory hallucination and specially instructed Qingwei not to think too much about it. I told my subordinates to take good care of her and not to go out. But one night, a strange bird cry came from outside the window. The bird cry was incomparably shrill. At that time, I also heard it. Soon after, outside the barbarian demon forest, the Undying Sect began to invade Barbarian City. Undying Sect. Invade Barbarian City. Su Yi sucked in a breath of cold air. In his mind, he immediately thought of the chaos in Barbarian City. The city was dyed red with blood and the tragic scene of his family being exterminated. Lu Zongyuan's eyes were still filled with fury. He heavily slammed the stone table, shouting loudly. It was at that time that I led the experts of the Lu family to join forces with the He, Imo, Song, and your Su family to fight against the savage beast. That battle lasted for 3 whole days. Lu Zongyuan said in a deep voice. His eyes were like red gems, emitting a bloody and demonic light. Chapter 2048. Man City could not withstand it. In the end, it was the invincible might of the old man that chased the beasts away. When I led the army back to the city, I discovered Qing Yu's corpse in the divine well in the center of Man City. His heart had already been dug out. Finishing his words, Lu Zongyuan was on the verge of collapse. His clothes were already wet from his tears as he laid on the stone table and wailed, twitching uncontrollably. Looking at the figure of this middle-aged man, it was impossible to imagine that he had any connection with the city lord of Man City. Su Yi lightly sighed, his heart pounding. Just as he was about to extend his hand to comfort him, Lu Zongyuan suddenly exploded again. His eyes bloodshot, Lu Zongyuan roared in anger. Why? Why did they take away my Qing Yu? She was a pregnant woman. So cruel. How could he do such a cruel thing? Why? Why? Just a quarter of an hour more, and I would have been able to save my Qing Yu. As he finished speaking, Lu Zongyuan's aura instantly spread out, his aura soaring to the heavens. His hair and beard stood on end, as if he was about to fight with his enemy at any moment. It was extremely terrifying. Tears continuously flowed down, his determined face covered with tear stains, haggard. After a while, Su Yi's lips twitched, a cold light surging. Frowning, he probed, then Ruoshi is... That's right, Ruoshi was a gift from the heavens. She was the best memory that Qing Yu gave me. Lu Zongyuan's gaze was cold as he recalled. At that time, I brought Qing Yu home like a madman. The best medical elder in the family discovered that Ruoshi was still alive. I still remember when Ruoshi was just born, her entire body was shining with 7 colors, translucent and snow-white. At night, the stars and clouds swirled in the sky. Wind and thunder never stopped. The entire room was filled with a fragrance that did not dissipate for 7 days. Lu Zongyuan's expression was still incomparably shocked, his expression shocked. At that time, I knew that Ruoshi was not ordinary, definitely not ordinary. Then what happened after that? Did you find the culprit? Su Yi raised his hand, tapping his chin. His gaze moved, a cold light flowing out. A low sigh was emitted from Lu Zongyuan's mouth. The Lu Zongyuan that was filled with pain sighed endlessly. Once the strange phenomenon appeared, I sealed off the entire Lu family. And in these 3 or 4 years, I could hear the cries of birds every once in a while. I once ordered people to search for the whereabouts of the birds, and anyone who went there died a horrible death. Shaking his head, the lingering fear on Lu Zongyuan's face had yet to disappear. His face was still as cold as ice as before. After that, I gave the order to heavily protect Ruoshi. Even if the entire Lu family used all of its power, Ruoshi could not be harmed in the slightest. Until one day, I thought of the sacred mountain and found the Lord. She told me that Ruoshi was a rainbow egg. This kind of physique would grow stronger with age. At that time, I knew that the murderer was waiting for Sheer to grow up. After saying this, Lu Zongyuan stared at Su Yi, his countenance greatly moved. Therefore, when Ruoshi secretly ran away and was played by you in the marketplace, I was unable to restrain my anger. What I was angry about was that the murderer would come to our door. Therefore, without stopping, I sent her to the sacred mountain. Luckily, the Lord saw that she was smart and cute, so she also helped me protect Ruoshi. Suddenly enlightened, Su Yi scratched his head and muttered to himself. So that's how it is. Thinking back to that day, before he had transmigrated, he had purposely taken advantage of Lu Ruoshi. Su Yi wanted to give himself a slap, so he said apologetically, City Lord Lu. Su Yi said embarrassedly. Lu Zongyuan, who had already calmed down slightly, smiled slightly, and said in a low voice, Now that you're serious, you're calling me City Lord Lu? Su Yi raised his head. Lu Zongyuan put his hand on Su Yi's shoulder and said seriously, Su Yi, I've watched you grow up. I've never thought that you were bad. On the contrary, I admire the grandson of old master Su Yi even more. It's just that there is too much karma involved. I had no choice but to do this. Ruoshi has also reached the age to talk about marriage. As her father, I'm very happy that she made the right choice. I believe that you will protect Ruoshi well, and let her be safe and happy for the rest of her life. Am I right? Looking at Lu Zongyuan's begging eyes, Su Yi's heart instantly lit up with a flame. He straightened his expression. Father-in-law, don't worry. Leave Ruashi to me. As for the murderer, I'll definitely make him pay the price he deserves. Thinking deeply, Su Yi instantly raised his head and looked at Lu Zongyuan. He said in a low voice, "It's obvious that someone leaked the news that there was a secret treasure in the barbarian city. Taking advantage of the chaos in the barbarian city, they took the opportunity to kill Ruashi's mother, and thus recovered their strength." Lu Zongyuan nodded his head, his gaze trembling. "I also think so. The Lord told me that the seven-colored egg heavenly barbarian race almost does not exist. It was only recorded in the ancient books of the sacred mountain. There are very few people who know about this. There are only two possibilities. This person is a top expert, or someone from outside the domain." As he finished speaking, Lu Zongyuan's gaze trembled, his eyes filled with disappointment. He said faintly, "There is not a moment when I'm not thinking about taking revenge for Ruashi's mother. Unfortunately, the enemy is too strong. The Lord also told me to endure, and this endurance actually lasted for nearly 20 years. After that, Su Yi and Lu Zongyuan chatted for a while. Walking alone on the path back to the Palace of Heaven, Su Yi frowned and asked in a cold voice, "What do you think? Is the murderer someone from the barbarian race, or someone from outside the domain?" Su Yi asked. Chi Fei Hong and the Iron Soulfish instantly woke up. The two of them had heard Lu Zongyuan's words. Chi Fei Hong stroked his beard and said, "I think it's someone from outside the domain. But it shouldn't be the woman from outside the domain that I saw in the illusory demon cave." "Why do you say that?" Su Yi asked curiously. "It doesn't seem like the style. Such a beautiful woman shouldn't do such a despicable thing as gouging out someone's heart." Chi Fei Hong's gaze was piercingly cold. He also despised such actions. At the same time, the Iron Soulfish's voice also gradually drifted out. He said seriously, "The barbarian race is also one of the star domains, although they are of a low level, but we can't rule out the possibility that they have such a special physique. But wouldn't there be even fewer people who can recognize such a physique?" Su Yi slowly nodded. The Iron Soulfish's logic was reasonable. After pondering for a moment, Su Yi's footsteps unconsciously quickened. Senior Qing Tian also said that he was once chased by someone from outside the domain. I'll go ask him when the time comes. Passing through a bamboo forest sprinkled with starlight and climbing up a small plateau, Su Yi returned to the Palace of Heaven. After many twists and turns, passing through several passageways, Su Yi raised his head and once again returned to Xiaoman's room. Inside the room, the light was dim. A moon-white figure rested her chin on her hand, leaning on a simple square table. Her cold eyes were hazy like a dream, her beautiful face sad and beautiful, and there was an indescribable noble coldness. "Su Yi returned?" Duanmu Xiaoman stood up as she heard his voice. Looking at the figure of Duanmu Qingtian behind her, she was somewhat surprised. Su Yi nodded his head, briefly recounting the matter with Lu Zongyuan. Duanmu Xiaoman was instantly stunned, her gaze trembling. Chapter 2049. I didn't expect Ruashi to have such a bizarre and bumpy life experience. Duanmu Xiaoman's gaze trembled, the flames in her eyes flickering. She shook her head at Su Yi's words. Yes, who knew that Ruashi, whom everyone worshipped as a goddess, had such bitterness in her heart? I'm afraid she practiced martial arts so hard since she was young to kill the enemy, who killed her mother. Su Yi sat down slowly with a bitter smile and drank the tea in his cup. All right, where's Ruashi? Su Yi looked around, but didn't see any trace of Ruashi. Duanmu Xiaoman pointed to the ground and said softly, I put this kind of treasure in a Leoline secret chamber. It's where I usually cultivate. With the energy barrier of the entire Yutian Palace protecting it, I believe no one can touch her. Su Yi nodded and moved half his body. He had been on the move the whole day, and rubbed his head. It seemed that Su Yi was used to seeking warmth from the Duanmu Xiaoman, who was feared by others. He held his chin and admired the Duanmu Xiaoman's exquisite and curvaceous back. Duanmu Xiaoman tilted her head, her beautiful eyelashes drooped, her eyes blazing, staring at the slightly tired Su Yi. Su Yi felt embarrassed from being stared at. He straightened his body, raised his head, and asked resentfully, "Why are you looking at me?" He glanced at the beauty in front of him. She was graceful and delicate with cherry lips. Her towering snowy hills rose and fell fiercely. Coupled with her slender willow waist that flashed under the moon robe, she instantly aroused his heart. Su Yi unconsciously licked his dry lips. Only in front of this woman did Su Yi always lower his aura. Only to see Duanmu Xiaoman frowning, her body leaning down, meeting Su Yi's gaze, her eyes shimmering with a natural allure. "Let me ask you a question." Duanmu Xiaoman tilted her head and smiled. Her smile was just like the melting snow in spring, warming people's hearts. "You two old guys, close your eyes and don't look. Do you hear me?" Su Yi's throat moved violently. His mind was already in a mess, and various images appeared in his mind. After his throat moved, Su Yi held his knees to hide his nervousness and shouted at the two old men in his body. Such a peerless face, every frown, smile, and action was enough to kill any male in the world. Translation: Su Yi howled in his heart. Who would be able to handle this? Note, translation, this chapter. At the same time, the fragrance that lingered in the air was intoxicating. Glancing at Qing Hong's eyes, Su Yi unconsciously leaned forward. Duanmu Xiaoman missed the distance of a body's length, and Su Yi missed. Su Yi, who was in a daze, raised his eyebrows and looked at Duanmu Xiaoman. "What do you want to ask me? When are you going to get married?" Duanmu Xiaoman said faintly. "In a few days. When Ruashi recovers, we will do it immediately. It will be an explanation to grandfather and Uncle Lu." Su Yi nodded. His thoughts once again returned to Lu Ruashi's matter and his speculation about the extraterrestrials. He immediately frowned. "Well, then I will tell them to hurry up and arrange it for you." Duanmu Xiaoman's voice echoed in the bedroom, extremely comfortable and pleasant. Thump, thump. Su Yi gently walked to Duanmu Xiaoman's side, hugged Duanmu Xiaoman from behind, and said softly, "Are you really not angry?" Duanmu Xiaoman was hugged by a strong body. Her breathing suddenly became rapid, and she whispered, "What am I angry about?" Su Yi's ambiguous and dreamy breath passed through his ears. He said seriously, "I also promise to come back and marry you. Jealousy is the nature of most women." Duanmu Xiaoman's body shrank slightly, and her hands pushed Su Yi's arms away. She turned around and put her arms around Su Yi's neck. Su Yi naturally put his hands on Duanmu Xiaoman's waist and finally began to appreciate this beautiful face. Duanmu Xiaoman curled her lips and smiled like a flower. "But I'm not an ordinary woman. Besides, do I need to be angry with a little girl?" Duanmu Xiaoman rolled her eyes and leaned closer. Su Yi smiled and said, "I almost forgot, my wife is the heaven-controlling goddess. Just this fact alone will cause me to be killed by many experts if I go out. Indeed, you must be careful. The Long clan is a great enemy. This battle on the sacred mountain will soon reach the Long clan's ears. You must be even more careful." Duanmu Xiaoman was slightly worried. Thinking about Draconis's wild ambition, even Duanmu Xiaoman's brows furrowed. "I know. After the wedding, I will leave the palace. Senior Qin Tian and Ruashin are at the heaven-controlling palace, so I don't want to divert my attention there. The Chaos Realm and Demon-Slaying Sect are also there. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. I haven't been back for a long time." Su Yi's eyes flashed. Of course, there was one more thing that he did not say. It had been more than a month since the 3-month event at the Yunxian sect. Wan Fatty Wong, and Yun Jing were all of the Yunxian sect. This time, Su Yi had to go. "Promise me, you must protect yourself well." Duanmu Xiaoman instantly frowned. Without her by his side, her heart was filled with a sense of emptiness. Su Yi smiled faintly, and a trace of sweetness appeared in his sword-like eyebrows. He used his hand to lightly pinch Duanmu Xiaoman's nose. My Xiaoman, when did you start to become so sentimental? I once promised Ruoxin that I would go to the sacred mountain to marry her. I also promised that after the Long clan is destroyed, I will immediately marry her. Duanmu Xiaoman's frosty eyes instantly turned red. The man in front of her was no longer comparable to those of the same age. His every movement carried a sense of calmness and ease, as steady as the abyss. Unconsciously, Duanmu Xiaoman's spiritual soul was captivated by Su Yi. Her lips trembled slightly as she said softly, "Okay, you are my Duanmu Xiaoman's man. I will wait." Then, Su Yi left a kiss mark on Duanmu Xiaoman's delicate forehead. He raised his hand and carried Duanmu Xiaoman. Being carried by Su Yi, Duanmu Xiaoman's persistence disappeared in an instant. Her heart trembled as she spoke timidly. "What do you want to do? Didn't you just say that I am a man? It's getting late, it's time to sleep." Duanmu Xiaoman immediately panicked. Her white, jade-like arms flailed in the air, but Su Yi gently bumped her, and her beautiful face instantly turned pale. Very quickly, Su Yi brought Duanmu Xiaoman to the bed and gently placed her down. Her clothes slid down to the sides, giving him a panoramic view of her stunning beauty. "You can't do this. You haven't married me yet. Ruoxin will also be angry." Duanmu Xiaoman's furrowed brows quickly relaxed. Her cheeks were flushed red like a peach in the spring of March, bright and beautiful. "Just sleep," Su Yi growled in a low voice, trying to make Duanmu Xiaoman not move. As he spoke, Su Yi put down the bed and crawled into the bed. He lay down beside Duanmu Xiaoman and pulled her into his arms with ease. In the darkness, he murmured softly. Very quickly, Su Yi entered the land of dreams. Duanmu Xiaoman's moon-like eyes flickered. Her fingers gently slid on Su Yi's firm nose. She leisurely smiled and slowly closed her eyes. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.